He's missed. On the siren. He's actually missed. He's missed, but they've held on. They have held on. They've done it for Ken.
For a moment, Ken, how are you feeling?
Pretty hard. We're in a tough week. Great boys. Great boys.
Hello and welcome to the Creecast. My name is Dave, and as always, a big hug and kiss, and thank you for joining us. A quick reminder before we get into everything, our Patreon is live, and the first epic episode is coming this week, The Edit. I was just talking to Jamie off air about it. I underestimated. I completely forgot that all the time that I thought that I had to put into edit, I also had to do the research and find the videos and find the bits to plug into it, which is extra hours. So it's taking me a lot longer, but it is nearing readiness. I'd say it's at 75% now, and I just got to finish that in the next day or two and then just check it all and then upload it, which I'm planning probably for Friday, I think, Australian time, just to let this episode that you're listening to now breathe for a couple of days as well. But yeah, get on the Patreon. There's a couple signed up already. And I'm just so excited to get this out there for everyone. It's been a lot of fun to do that first episode, and there's more episodes to come. This first episode being just a look back at the 2004 season and the preparation for it. The next 3 episodes are going to be the real, even more fun than this first fun episode was, as we talk about the 3 finals that we played to get ourselves to the ultimate prize in 2004. So yeah, get signed up at the Patreon, which is patreon.com/thecreed1870. Anyway, it's my bloody pleasure to introduce a review in which we review a win again. I don't know if Jamie realizes this, but it's the first time since May 24th we've had a win to review. So we flirted with a winless June, but your Port Adelaide Footy Club won in a nail-biter. One that I think most people would say is for the purists. Jamie and I both watched the replay. Myself, I needed to, as I actually was busy on the night and only got to watch half of it live. But yeah, I don't think too many people chose to watch a replay, but there was a lot to get out of it. And a lot, I think, there's left us no shortage of talking points. We won 8-14-62 to 8-12-60, sending the Saints marching home with a big fat L. Ken was emotional. Port Twitter couldn't figure out what to do with that. And we find ourselves in 7th in the tightest round 16 ladder the competition has ever seen, I think. Jamie? For what was, I think Nathan Burke, former St Kilda player, said it's the worst game he's ever seen. It was going back and forth with people in his mentions. I didn't find it that bad, but maybe it's the pleasure of being able to watch it without the pressure of the results in mind as I was watching it on a replay yesterday with 6 beers in hand.
Yeah, winners are grinners, baby. It was a great game of football. I don't know what everyone's talking about, but g'day, Dave, and hello to everyone tuning in. And thank you for those people who, like Dave said, have signed up for Patreon. Some good stuff coming there. But yeah, the game on Sunday, a lot of embellishment goes into people's reviews and perceptions, and it's mostly emotion based, obviously, and football's an emotional game, and people like us only watch it the one time while filled with emotion, and the aftermath can kind of reflect accordingly. But yeah, like we've spoken off there, we both watched the replay, and yeah, I for one managed to pick out a few humorous, noteworthy, fantastic moments. So yeah. And at the end of the day, we were playing a St Kilda team coached by Ross Lyons. So yeah, it is what it is kind of these days.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was surprised that St Kilda made it a turgid kind of, trench warfare game. Not to, trivialize the actual notion of trench warfare. But it kind of felt like that. That analogy works in the sense of it is 2 immovable lines just trying to gain inches against each other as a way of saying this is success by just getting this little bit of ground. I remember the Blackadder. I don't know if you've watched Blackadder.
No,
but
not much.
Blackadder Goes Forth, which is the 3rd season. It's just a classic season of TV, and actually has one of the most emotional endings of all time in television, I think, when they well, they go over the top. Spoilers at this point. It's been out for years, but there's a moment where Blackadder, like Rowan Atkinson's character, walks into the what's the Blackadder fans are going to be yelling, but there's the commander's name. He's got a little patch of grass, like 1 foot by 1 foot on the table. And he's just like, this is how much land we conquered today. And Blackadder's like, oh, what scale is it to? And he's like, 1 to 1. And that's what it feels like. Yeah, and that's what it feels like playing Ross Lyons St Kilda. It is capturing a little piece of grass or just getting a goal or two a little bit. Some teams have had some, success against them, but by and large, that's how they want to play a little bit, is to restrict your ground and make every 1-to-1 piece of land that you capture, as so to speak, in a football game, feel like it's a lot more. And certainly I feel like, and we'll get to certainly, I know people are probably thinking about the can emotion at the end of the game. We will get to that. Just keep listening. But we'll talk about the game first. I think, and you and I talked about this, again, a plug for the Patreon, as we were talking about the 2002 qualifying final with Collingwood, that it was a sliding doors moment in that game. And I feel like there was a sliding doors moment in this first quarter where we'd gotten 3 goals up, looked comfortable, and then the umpires decided we're going to have an influence here.
Yeah.
And they give that free kick to Rowan Marshall because Jordan Sweet just flicked the ball to Ollie Wines, kind of getting up, and just when you've got commentators saying this is a joke multiple times on the telecast, kind of almost off mic, like they're not really wanting to be picked up, but they say it all. Yeah.
This is off the record, but yeah. It still catches.
I feel it feels like, and then again, there was a free kick, so that gets them within 2 goals, and then there's another free kick to Logan Evans, who had 0 prior opportunity, but somehow was caught holding the ball, which is again,
and he's right up against the boundary too. So
yeah,
if the way that it's being perceived now is, he has to try and put on his boot, but if he puts it on his boot, it's going to go out of bounds,
Or
it's just silly.
Or he just, first instinct handball and goes straight over the line because he's facing the line. Oh, it's deliberate. Yes.
Yeah. And the arm carrying the ball ended up in between the ground and his body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, and similar to that one, the Josh Battle one later in the game, I don't necessarily agree with either.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about the sliding doors moment in the first quarter, it did seem like that because we were on top of the game and running on top of the ground, to borrow a cliche. I'm glad that you brought it up too. Definitely was through gritted teeth that you're watching the telecast. And replay even. Just like, what the fuck? And I have this, it is
I yelled, what the fuck? Yeah, at the TV while watching the replay. And I was like, there's no investment here because I know the result. But yeah, anyway, continue. I
first of many what the fucks.
Yeah.
No, I have this conspiracy theory with umpiring, and so Thursday, Friday night in particular, you generally get good umpires, but because it's national TV, the umpires like to get their faces on TV.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday you get the B team of umpires, and they make some very B grade type decisions.
You get the Scully.
And that's definitely what it felt like watching the game on Sunday. It's like, oh, yep, the B team's clocked in and they're having an influence early.
Yeah. It's the wife and I have been watching through Brooklyn Nine-Nine properly for the first time. I've caught episodes a lot, but yeah.
Wow,
we got the Scully and Hitchcock. We got the Scully and Hitchcock of the umpiring.
Yeah. They're there. No one really knows how or why they're there, but they're there. And for anyone who's not emotionally invested, they add comic value to the spectacle, which is what I'm sure people who weren't Port Adelaide or St Kilda supporters thought. Don't know why they stuck around and watched it, but what I found, we just love footy.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating though is that both teams ran at above 75% disposal efficiency. Ours was actually 0.1% below 80. Like,
Yeah, I'm glad.
so 80, yeah.
I'm glad you
I
brought that up
think
because
what,
I thought that was really impressive, actually.
yeah, yeah,
Which I think
what,
goes to show you the, just to interject for a second, the kind of nature of the game.
yeah,
Like there's less movement sometimes. So the again, the trench warfare analogy of really being careful with capturing or moving the ball around the ground. Um, I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it just goes to show that it's mainly the goal kicking and some of the more crucial turnovers are what obviously stick in the mind for a lot of people who watch the game.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, that stat alone says that generally it was a pretty, uh, not a pretty decent game, but the disposal part of the game wasn't as bad as what a lot of the
You,
reviews
yeah,
kind of lead you to think.
the eye test, you'd sit there and say, "Oh, geez, everyone was fucking shit and had concrete boots on." But yeah, when you look at the actual those numbers, and you're like, yeah, going through when we get to our stats later with the votes and everything, yeah, I was really surprised to see a lot of decent disposal efficiency numbers for some of the players as well. That with high numbers of disposals still running at a pretty good level. So yeah, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that when I just looked at Twitter at that. I was at a screening. And just a side note, it's a really weird thing to be this invested in a team
yeah,
that I do try to watch live every week and for the purpose of the podcast and be involved in the discourse and everything. But yeah, this screening we booked tickets for a while ago, and just usually port games don't clash over here because of the time difference. So
yeah.
didn't even consider it. And this was a later screening; it was a 9:30 screening. So I had to go into airplane mode at 9:30, which was just as I think a minute into the third quarter. So I kind of had the AFL app open and I was watching the game on the phone outside. There's like international press lined up because it was like an Indian movie. Um, and so they've got their press over there. It was really weird because I'm just watching all these press go by and there's like placards and it's really nice cinema and I'm just on my phone watching the poor game. Like really,
Yeah.
I kind of at one point went, this is a really weird moment for me. But yeah, so I luckily the movie was really good, really entertaining. If you're into gory action movies, Kill is a good one to catch if you can, when you can. But so it was entertaining enough. I did actually forget about the game for a bit, but then at quieter moments, as soon as a quiet moment hit the movie, it's just in the back of my mind, I said, "What's going on? What's going on?" So it was a
Yeah, I
relief.
wonder how the game's going.
Yeah, it was a relief to like as soon as they had a Q&A after, but I kind of just flicked on my phone and just had to just went to Twitter and just saw reactions and saw that I'd already seen a notification about that Port win a tense one and Hinkley's emotion and whatnot, but I had a quick scroll of Twitter before the Q&A got started in earnest and saw just people talking about this terrible game. So when I looked at the stats, that's a long-winded way to get back to when I looked at the stats a day later, because I only looked at the stats the next day, I just went, that doesn't match up with what I'm seeing people
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you would have thought just everyone was kicking it out in the fall. And yes, there was your standard moments in a game where someone undercooks a kick. I think Logan Evans had one early. I think when I was watching live, actually, that he just completely undercooked one, which is, he's an 18-year-old kid. And you could see he kind of tried to just pierce it just as a one, like onto a runner on the
Oh, there was
chest.
a turnover, you
Yeah.
mean?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
Logan
yeah.
Evans one. Yeah, there was a few of those.
Absolutely the right option. Yeah, just the
Yeah.
execution of the
Yeah.
kick was a bit too what would you say, like flat.
Yes,
He
it
didn't
looked like
weight it like as much as like he wanted to.
yeah, because he kind of wanted to stab it forward, but he just didn't stab it enough, so it kind of just
Yeah.
undercooked it and just floated. Like it was still a
Yeah,
decent
yeah.
spiral, like a very
He
good
was trying to
kick.
skim it right over the top of that St.
Yeah,
Kilda player because I can't remember who it was who was kicking to. They were in great position.
yeah, if they would have taken
I
it
remember
and
that piece of play. Yeah.
turned and gone, really. But
Mm.
um, good sign of confidence from him. They kind of looked at that and kind of has just confidence in his disposal. It's just he's 18. Like you're still learning. You're still. I mean, your body's still finishing developing. He's gonna, you know, finish. He'll get his disposal will clean up as he goes. So just I like the kind
Yeah.
of quiet confidence that he has. Certainly,
Yeah.
congrats
It's
for his.
kind of one of the good things about like Lorenz was unfortunately the sub, and I'm with
Mhm,
you where I don't agree that a debut should be a sub.
mhm.
Someone put up on, I think it was Twitter, that maybe the intention was to give Evans and Lorenz half, a game each or something like that. But still, I don't like either of those propositions.
Yeah.
But I think, the bringing in debutants is like they're not confident enough to overcomplicate the game necessarily, which is good. That's, and we've
fundamentals.
spoken about a few games where, it would pay for some of our more, fashionable footballers to just kind of draw it back to basics a little bit. So that's kind of refreshing. And like I said, that piece of play that you're talking about in particular, like that was the right decision. It wasn't overcomplicated. Yeah, it was just an execution.
He just completely undercooked it. Yeah. And I don't mind those ones. You can just look at it and go, yeah, that's just a dispose. And if a 25-year-old player, one of our star players is making that decision, I'm a bit more critical, or making that execution error, I'm a bit more critical. So I'm like, we pay you guys to
nailing that.
Nail those ones when you're not, but an 18-year-old.
And I think it was more like near the end of the game where both teams were chasing that one final goal. Which obviously eluded them for, 13 minutes of gameplay or something like that.
Insanity.
Where we had a lot of genuine forward forays and squandered. And again, that being the end of the game, again, that's what sticks in people's minds too. So, but I was going to mention before that I'm pretty sure I've heard somewhere that like a long kick, if it travels a certain distance, I think it's automatically counted as an effective disposal. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So obviously in a kind of a congested game and where there are a lot of kind of hack kicks forward or long kicks to try and get out of congestion.
That's
I'm
an
sure
interesting one.
they've drilled down on it. It was a while ago, if my memory serves me right. It was a while ago that I read that piece of information. So they might have adjusted it now to go like, well, you need to set mark, or if it's a blatant turnover, then you can't count it. But
it would be interesting. If it's like
semantics, because I don't know if it's actually 100% correct.
Yeah, because if it's like a 45-meter kick that goes from your half-back flank to your half-forward flank and it ends up in a contest and comes to ground, do they count that as an effective disposal?
That's what I mean. I think that's probably...
That's interesting, because I've always wondered...
Because you've gained territory.
Yeah, because I've wondered when I see, and we'll get to it, but Brandon Zach Thatcher has 100% disposal efficiency in my stats that I've got. So... It's and I do wonder. I sometimes look at that and go, oh, geez, that's great. So I've thought, like, if I had the time, I'd go back and watch. Like when I see that and I go, all right, he's at 13 disposals, I think. Going back at 13 disposals and 100. So I want to go back at some point and watch a game and just look at every one and see what kind of what disposals they were, because I have wondered that, because I'm like, how I just. When you're having 10 plus disposals, it almost seems like it's a near impossibility to be 100% effective. But I guess,
surely this is incorrect. Like, how can anyone be 100%?
But I'm happy to just roll with the stats I've got them. But it's good to have that potential. I'm gonna have to, that might be part of my procrastinating as I'm doing the edit tomorrow. I might Google that and just see if I can find any clarification on how that works currently. But that's good to, because it is always, when we talk about disposal efficiency, I'm sure people do wonder like what counts. And usually you think it's going to be a direct, my thought has always been, it's almost certainly a direct connection, or at least a gaining of possession of your team from your disposal. So, but if it is, I mean, and I do probably understand why they would count, if it's 35 meters plus or 40 meters plus, whatever their metric is, if it ends up in a contest that you haven't lost and it's more, or if it's neutral or whatever. And I can understand why, because football is a territory game. It's kind of like, punts or kicks in, rugby or NFL or whatever. It's just like, you're giving the ball possession away, but you're gaining, it's the territory.
You put it in an area where it's a little bit safer. For it to be in the opposition's hands.
And I guess that's the effective disposal, is because a player has probably done the job that they've been tasked with, which is, if you're the defender on the halfback line or in the back line, your job sometimes is just to get it forward with good territory gains. So, yeah. Anyway, that's a side note.
Kane
That's
Farrell, Kane Farrell being up there in efficiency, he kicks a lot of long kicks, so maybe that contributes. But
I think he almost led the team. I know just below Zach Butters. They both were in the 560s for meters gained. Zach Butters just had a handy 5 meters more. But yeah, it's it's an interesting side note there, because I do sometimes, I have thought about that in the background as I'm doing the stats, and I'm like, what is the exact metrics for an effective disposal? Is it what I think it is, or is there some other stuff? So so I hope the listeners enjoyed that for
that little digression. Disposal efficiency.
Stats
I'm sure
nerds.
Footy Nuffies, like,
anyway,
I want to look into this too.
Yeah, anyone that listens to us for 2 hours,
probably
2 hours,
a Footy Nuffie,
3 hours a week sometimes. Yeah, probably a Footy Nuffie.
We're longer than the Bix and Walshy show.
Yeah, which love Walshy and Bix. I don't mind it actually. Met Bix a couple of times actually. Once when my mum bought the VHS of the '98 grand final, because my parents Crows fans, and
did.
Yeah, and
you could purchase it.
And it was at the AFL store, on VHS. It was at the port store, at the AFL store in Tea Tree Plaza, back when they had that up there. And Bix was like Bix was one of the like had a stake in it, and he'd be in there sometimes working like behind the counter. And my mum went in to buy the VHS, and we were up there. I was like, because I was probably 10. And we go to the counter, and she puts it over, and Bix is just there like, oh, g'day. And she's like, and my mum's just like, oh my God. And then she's like, can you sign it? And he's like, yeah, sure. So my parents have a signed VHS from him. But and then Walshy, obviously, our game day MC and big Port fan, of course, Jared Walsh. Anyone that's listening that's not local to South Australia, Mark Bickley and Jared Walsh have a morning show on SEN. So it is SEN, isn't it? I'm getting that right.
Is, yeah.
I'm being international now. I just capture it in clips on Twitter and sometimes forget which one. Yeah, but it's SEN.
Yeah, they're on SEN on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But like with radio these days, half their time is ads.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it kind of cuts it down.
Yeah, I used to consume a lot of that when I was over there, just via podcasts, because it would just be clipped out and you could just do it in segments. It was quite good. I just haven't listened to much of the local radio. I mean, I catch up with Footy, AFL 360 and stuff and everything, which to get back on track, because I'm starting to ramble about just good little good little tangents for people if they're not aware of things. But
we must have won.
Yeah. The other time Bix came I met him was at the bowling alley that I used to work at, and I told him I used to always, every time a Crows player or a former Crows player would come in, I'd always tell him I hated them when they played, and they used to be and the reaction, I'd always do it with a smile on my face, and I told it to Bassett once, and he goes, well, I'm working for Port now, and he goes, oh no, I like you now, but now he's not. But I'm
surprised you got something back from him, because I remember his press conferences, they used to be fairly like,
he was actually quite
dry.
He was quite nice, actually. I talked to him a couple more times while he was there, and he was quite, it was a busy day, and he was quite accommodating, like understanding of the fact that we were busy and whatnot. And I have a very kind of dry sense of humor when I'm talking to him, because my dad, the Crows fans, talking to him, he's like, oh yeah, I loved you in the back lines, and like I just chime in and went, yeah, fuck. I didn't say fuck. I just said, yeah, I hated you, because my dad's just like, because my dad goes, I loved you, and my dad goes, I'm sorry for him. He's a Port fan. And then, Bassett turns around and goes, well, I'm working for you now. I was like, yeah, I like you now. Just didn't like you then. I know a few of the cricket boys, he's been in the grown-up pub once too, and got on the beers with them. So they enjoyed that. Tangents. Anyway, back to it. There
was a game of football on Sunday.
Yeah. So to get into, I mean, we talked about the umpiring, which kind of continued throughout the game. And I guess I did want to make a note, just getting back to that before we get into the rest of it, because it kind of tightened up after that first quarter. It's amazing that we kicked half of our goals in that first quarter. To kind of, because I know we try to be like the umpires and not the be all and end all. And both situations, I think the first kick, that the one that ended up in the Jordan Sweet giving away the free kick, which again, it's a bullshit free kick. Umpires should not. The role of umpires in a game is to officiate a game and to make sure the game flows. And you should never notice the umpires. They should just be making the decision and that's why I never understand these rules that they bring in for I know it's the respect thing I get. Like, I don't want, the umpiring, at local levels and stuff like that, especially some of those scenes you see on the news about fights and whatever, is just horrible. So I get the intent behind it, but the execution is horrible because that's just not like if an umpire's thinking they have to make that decision because this is like the strict rule book I've got and this is what I'm meant to do when this player doesn't do this thing, then the umpires are clearly not up to not up to the job, but just not well enough trained, and they've got too much. Must be processing too much information. I've always said my main thing about it is the AFL is constantly screwing the umpires or the management of them because they keep changing these things and give. But yeah, that's a horrible one. But I always like to say, never get yourself in the situation you have to, because Elia takes a good mark and then just undercooks a kick that because that was an Elia kick into Sweet. Yeah, it kind of just undercooks it, and Sweet has to dive forward and kind of take it on the ground and doesn't end up kicked. Because
sorry, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say it was a kick inboard that when you're going inboard
should have just
in your defensive 50, then you want to make sure it's executed right. And Elia had a great game, so no, it's just one of those ones that he undercooked. But so it's one of those, and I think. Trying to think the holding the ball one with the Logan Evans one, there was a turnover at some point in midfield, which we gave up a lot of scores to try to get back on. I
think Dan Butler got like 2 or 3 of those free kicks in fairly quick succession.
Yeah. That was the thing I wanted to say though. Off that free kick that Butler got that he shouldn't have gotten, the goal actually came from him clearly signaling to a guy to make a lead. Like, you watch the replay and he's doing these little nods. I'm like, we could have stopped that goal if we kind of just recognized because he was clearly looking for a target and setting up a lead. So both goals that were scored off of shitty free kicks, we could have done better to mitigate that either before, obviously, the Elia kick or after that free kick. We could have made sure Butler was the one taking the kick from a bit further out. He was going to have to do the snap, which Dan Butler, look, he probably could have made it, obviously, but Mason would,
make sure of it.
Make sure of it, and is a lot closer, which with those snaps around the body, the way they do them, the closer you are sometimes, and some players are just really, really quite proficient at, they understand if I'm at this point of the field, I have my technique down. So, umpires terrible throughout the game. And for both sides, we'll give that acknowledgement. I think, again, going back to just the sliding doors thing to close off on that before we get to the rest of it, I think they made it. Like, I think if that free kick doesn't happen and maybe it's contest and we get out of that, then the rest of the first quarter goes a little bit differently, and hopefully we can kind of just massage that lead out a little bit more. But again, it could have
we might even bang on 1 or 2 more.
But exactly. It just felt like we're at that point that we could just break the game open, but they got their tails up and it ended up being the game it was. So, and we got a couple of free kicks. I can't think of any example at the moment. I just remember at the time watching the replay and even watching.
It wasn't a free kick, but Ollie Lord's first goal was off of a mark. It was like 10-meter kick.
Yes.
Which, not a free kick, but adjudicated by the umpires still.
An incredible assist from Rosie, by the way.
Yeah, fantastic. Keeping the ball alive, which again we kind of tend to do when we're getting it around our forward line. As you probably should keep the pressure on the defense. But that Elia kick you're talking about, it was interesting. We started the game, you could tell everyone was quite tense, probably off the back of a pretty stressful week, and some of the possession to start the game, left a little to be desired in those moments. But we were playing the game still in a way that we would have liked the first time we played St Kilda, where we had all the play, but we just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. We actually were putting it on the scoreboard, and then like you said, a couple of those moments kind of shift the balance a little bit, tilt the grass in St Kilda's favour a little bit, to borrow a term from last week. And And yeah, but I think one of the more important aspects of the game is just kind of the increase in effort. Like
Mhm.
it's like again in certain stages it might have been a bit misplaced, and uh, it ended up a scrappy affair. Again, cognizant with St Kilda football games, but um, yeah, you could tell there was a huge focus on work rate, effort, getting from contest to contest, helping teammates out. I saw a lot more teamwork off the ball,
Mhm.
and that was watching it on TV. It would have been interesting to watch the vision. Oh, sorry, be there live
Yeah.
to kind of see a bit more of that off the ball teamwork and work rate. But I could see it in the telecast, so that was good enough for me in that regard.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just, yeah, breaking that bad run of form, and our game is still nowhere near where it needs to be. But uh, they tick that off. They need to just continue with that and now polish up some of the fundamental skills on top of the, I guess, fundamental effort that you need to show in an AFL football game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was still, contested numbers were, still we finished on the negative side of that, which again,
Mm.
not something that we usually end up winning by much, if anything. But it was only, I guess, -10 is better than -40. I think it was -10 or -11. Um, so I'm just scrolling down. -12, so 125 to 113. And then, even just the uncontested possessions was we only a +6. So it was a very, very even game as far as actual disposals go for both teams, and a little bit down on kind of what you'd expect from an AFL game, which again speaks to kind of the slower territory battle kind of game it turned into. Um, I was quite happy with more of the movement getting inside 50. And even we kind of looked to be, not that we executed it well, looking for target. There was a few bombs, but I found in particular that first quarter we looked to be trying to find people, and I really loved Jackson Mead's game in that run of goals that we had. He kind of, I don't know, I'm watching so much 2004 stuff at the moment. The way he herky jerks his body a little bit, just sometimes, and holds the ball out in front of him and looks for. There's something about him that reminds, not completely, but just shades of Jared Schofield, kind of just that extra like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
There's
Yeah, yeah,
something about
yeah.
it.
I
I'm
was
not
like
sure if
Josh Carr, but yeah,
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 it's
I
just the
know what you
way
mean.
he holds the ball out in front. He runs with this like way of like just looking for, and the way he holds the ball, and
I think
um
he's developed a decent level of core strength.
yes.
And he does have an underestimated ability to kind of shake off an opponent and
Mm-hmm.
still kind of keep his composure. Where more often than not, oh yeah, I mean, I was going to say more often than not, end up in a handball to a teammate, which is completely fine. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he had 10 kicks and 8 handballs, so kind of split them
Yeah.
almost. So yeah, but yeah, kind of that composure piece and just linking up, creating chains of possession.
Mm-hmm.
I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, and they was fine. They were finding targets either outside 50, and obviously they kind of worked the ball back around for the Bergman goal, or then the one where Mead was involved again. I think Mead drew, then HORNE-FRANCIS kind of went wide and kicked that ball back inboard for Narkle. So they were trying to work the ball and then allow that kind of play to develop inside 50 and allow guys to get into space as they're kind of working the ball around the 50 arc, and letting the play develop inside. It was, yeah, it's still, again, there's a lot of stuff that needs to improve, but just you could see some there was some little sparks that I enjoyed there, and then obviously the
Yeah,
game became what it was,
yeah,
and
for
we
sure.
missed a lot of set shots as well in the
I
end.
think, yeah,
Yeah, some that we should be kicking, so that is an issue. Again, goal kicking is an issue at times, but I always think it's just I think people forget that it's just always been an issue. And I think I was kind of trying to think,
watching those 2004
yeah,
clips and score lines, yeah, goal
mm,
kicking has been a tension
yeah.
point for many years.
I think even just the
Seems to
athletic.
got out of hand a little bit, maybe for us. But again, maybe that's just an emotional response. It wasn't.
Yeah,
It wasn't good though on
yeah.
Sunday.
I think it's just it is a confidence thing for some players as well. And I think Georgiades had he's had some good weeks. He had a bad week kicking. I'm still loving
Just
Giorgio.
yeah,
His overall game, I'm still enjoying. He's moving pretty well and looks confident. He just missed again. And then just him shanking that one at the end, as the commentator said, that kind of sums up the game.
sums it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
I think goal kicking confidence is insidious,
mhm.
positive or negative. Like it's like catching cricket balls in a game of cricket. Like the first one
Yeah.
goes down, the second one goes down. It just the team, it kind of as a collective loses confidence in
Mhm.
their catching ability, and more often than not, it just creates this bad chain reaction. Whereas you take the first one or kick the first one in a game of football, and that kind of it seems to always happen in
Mhm.
all various games of football. Just so you see all sorts of teams start off rough with their kicking, and it's like who's gonna
Yeah.
actually kick true? And like commentators were kind of critical of now that being in Melbourne, they were actually there. They were kind of critical of our forward craft, like our forwards and their forward craft, and I do think that the set shots muddied the waters a little bit because I like, and he's copped a lot of criticism, but Marshall, his two opportunities came from some fairly good work, and they're saying he's not getting into space and whatnot. But again, we're playing St Kilda, and I imagine that St Kilda, the last time they played, right, they put on 100+ points against Brisbane
Mhm.
at the Gabba, I believe. So just the way that the first quarter played out, I, again, not being there, kind of think that maybe they started with a bit more of an open game plan. And then once they realized that they were completely getting smashed in center clearance, from that point on, they congested it a little bit more. I'd
Yeah.
really be interested if, anyone was there, if that's how it played out. Because when we played them at Adelaide Oval, it was congested from kind of the word go. As soon as we got the ball, it was just a flood back. So I mean, it's a bit hard for a forward to find space in an area where there's no space to find. But I thought Ollie Lord, while he wasn't getting out in the lead, again, he was playing that Charlie role, which I don't like. I don't necessarily want him to be a carbon copy of Charlie Dixon, but it was a number of times he was outnumbered 2-on-1, but he still managed to get the ball to ground and just affecting the contest. And him himself was involved in several changes of play. So, again, there's a lot of criticism over a lot of aspects of this game, but I think if Todd, converts, particularly the one that was more in front,
Mhm.
some of these other forwards kick truly. Like, again, like I think HORNE-FRANCIS had 3 shots on goal, kicked 1 goal, 1. Maybe one of those didn't make the distance or something.
There
I
was
might
one
be
that
thinking of someone
almost
else.
he did have 3 shots, and I think two were set. Or one might have been on the run. Another one might have been on the run.
Yeah.
But there was one that kind of went like from the right side to the left side, and it almost looked like it almost went out the full or maybe hit the point post. Can't remember, or it didn't make the distance. That's the one I think you're talking about. And then there was the one there was one that was definitely a set shot that he missed, and then obviously a really nice running goal that kind of gave us a positive little zap in the nipples going into halftime. Yeah, the midfield group overall, like the HORNE-FRANCIS, Butters, Rosie, again, not huge disposal. Although HORNE-FRANCIS was nearing in 30 disposals, he had 28, but probably an imperfect performance, but probably the closest we've gotten to something decent out of the group as a whole for a while, with the likes of Drew, Rosie, HORNE-FRANCIS, Butters, all with 20 plus. Wines and Mead were there with 18 as well. And influential as well.
Yeah.
Decent. And Rosie, particularly, I was really pleased with how he looked. Obviously some votes will happen later, and we'll get into some stats there. But just in general, just as an overall vibe check on it, again, imperfect, and a lot of that's down to St Kilda. But I was a lot happier seeing Rosie look fit, and some of those little tricky Rosie things. As I said, that little assist,
Yeah, that bulking
that
he
little,
does.
yeah, and that little 8 meter assist for Ollie Lords. I don't know what I don't know if the commentator said did that go 8 meters or something. That's why that number was in my head. But regardless, it was paid, and you get away with that one. But the ingenuity involved in that is the stuff that why Rosie. It's funny, as soon as after the Essendon game around 4, everyone was saying, "Oh yeah, this bloke's fucking incredible," and then
Yeah,
he gets injured.
sliced bread.
He gets injured, and everyone starts going, "Oh, maybe Sam Walsh is better," and it's like they're both fucking good.
That's
like
never
let's
gonna
just
go away.
but yeah, that's the kind of ingenuity stuff because that's split second, throw it on the boot, but you still have to have that kind of elite athlete body and brain, hand-eye coordination, all those things come together in that moment to get, because most of the time that's sometimes just flicking off nowhere, but that ball he got it right on the part of the boot that it could come into an area where someone could take a mark, and thankfully
Someone was alert. Yeah.
Ollie Lord took a really good mark as well. That one that excuse me, the commentators
Padded
thought
up.
yeah, the one that he padded up, and the commentators thought live, they were like, "Oh no, I think it was Josh Battle." I think they were talking. He's like, "No, Battle," and then the replay shows they were like, "Oh yeah, no, Lord did get that one."
Yeah. He did it well. Unfortunately, his kick was terrible.
Yeah,
it went out the full.
Yeah. The other thing to note on, and kind of there's some questions that come out of this, the back line looked good. Obviously, that last quarter was an amazing kind of, Alamo stand against the Horde as St Kilda tried to make a run, and we just held on. And Zerk Thatcher and Aaliyah had really good games. And it's without a Sava, which not to get into. I'm not trying to be extremist in the view of, oh no, we're better without a Sava, but it does raise the question of, we've probably brought up the issue of the structure and players kind of running into each other and crashing into each other. I think unfortunately Asava's been in part of that, and I kind of I think the best version of Port Adelaide with the current squad we have requires Asava Radaglia at his best. But if he is, and obviously injury was illness. Was it illness or injury?
For who? Sorry.
For Asava, was it illness or injury that he went?
Hamstring.
Hamstring. It was hamstring training, wasn't it? Yeah. So I assume he's going to be out for probably a couple of weeks if it's in a hamstring. But yeah, got him as 1-2 weeks. So it kind of does give us the opportunity to kind of see a structure without him in there, and I don't want to raise the question. I'm kind of being tentative with it because I don't want to, because I do believe the best version of Port Adelaide with the current squad requires Asava to be a part of that with his body and stuff. But probably some of those issues that we've had at times has been less the players' skills themselves, more their understanding and execution of their role. And I was really, really happy with how Aaliyah and Zerk Thatcher looked at the back, along with the rest of them. But they were key, and they both took. I think Aaliyah took 10 marks, Zerk Thatcher took 9, and they just looked comfortable back there. And I was just more wanting to raise it for you, how you saw the backline performance with Asava out, because I was kind of worried with a backline that already seemed a bit under siege that. And you and I have said a lot that it's not so much the player, it's more the how we defended the ball coming in rather than the backline itself, and that is a part of it too, that we probably did a better job of helping them out and giving them the opportunity to make those plays on the ball. So, but it was it does just raise that interesting question now that we are going to get a couple of weeks without Asava because of injury. Kind of how it looks in the next couple of weeks, and kind of what looks we get, and how that changes the way we maybe look at bringing Asava back in, because we do need him as the body he is, and he does bring something. But it'll be interesting what kind of look we get as to how that changes maybe how we bring him back in.
Yeah. It is interesting, and because kind of those two key pillars that were left did have great games, so
Mhm.
it it just adds weight. I think the whole defensive system on Sunday worked better from
Mhm.
front to back. So, and like for what the months, 5 weeks leading into the Carlton game, and even for most parts of that game, we thought that Sava in particular was probably in the most in the best form of the season up until that point. And then funnily enough, the team
Mhm.
starts to go poorly and the defense cops it as a result. Like it's tough to be, because we've had some great wins this year and all three of them have been involved in those games. So
Mhm.
I think what's more important is that no, like Aaliyah came out on the news one of the days last week, and he put his hand up to say, like, I'm a senior player, and I haven't been playing well. Like a lot of the
Mhm.
pressures on our recruits, but like I'm supposed to be
He's the leader
the
of that
leader back
defense now.
there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that kind of showed on Sunday. You could tell he kind of was playing with a bit more vigor and a bit more attack, and just yeah, whether that's because Asava wasn't there or not,
Yeah.
only a parallel universe could tell you otherwise. So, uh, I think what's helping is that we've got a couple of other players who actually have a bit of defensive accountability and good defensive positioning,
Mhm.
like Miles Bergman and like Logan Evans. While fresh, he's actually a defender.
Mhm.
Now, because whereas I think our mix maybe earlier in the season was a bit more on the attacking side, so we lacked a bit of that defensive accountability. I think that's just helping overall. Uh, those two shine because they had such a fantastic game, and I'm really happy that they did.
Mhm.
Particularly Zerk Thatcher, because obviously, yeah, the recruitment, like everything was getting chucked under the bus last week. And one notable criticism was, yeah, our recruitment. So I was very, very happy for him
Yeah.
to have such a good game. And
Thought Jordan Sweet went all right too.
as do
Just
I. Yeah.
yes,
When you
speaking of recruits, he's in
recruitment, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, in the ruck position, I thought, yeah, just as much as he did in the previous St Kilda fixture, uh,
Mhm.
I thought in terms of ruck, the role, I thought he outperformed Rowan Marshall, albeit they were
There was
kind of,
a
St
there
Kilda were
was a
kind of
10.
splitting it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he clearly got the better of Campbell,
Mhm.
and then Campbell obviously got subbed off. Obviously, Rowan Marshall, he had a good game forward. So yeah, if Asava's there, does that kind of help give Sweet a chop out? Because I don't know if I
Mhm.
necessarily expect Sweet to be a fantastic defender.
Yeah,
It's
because
a
he was
great
kind
lever for
of
St Kilda to pull, but
yeah.
yeah, he kind of lost that aspect of the game, whereas everything else I thought was great. I think he was our tackles leader,
He
Sweet,
had
on the
he
day.
he had seven. Yeah, he had a really nice one catching. He was the leader because I think the next best is Butters and Kane Farrell both had five. So yeah, but yeah, he had seven, and he caught some. I can't think of the St Kilda player, but he caught them holding the ball as they were moving through with for a really good tackle. So yeah, some of that around the ground kind of movement as well, and yeah, he was
Some nice defensive marks too.
yeah, yeah. Where was his marks numbers? Yeah, he took 3 marks, but yeah, crucial marks. So
Mm. But just
and
going
yeah,
back on defense,
mhm.
yeah, the whole Asava thing, I probably expect him to still come back when he's fit. I think, like, I don't know if I brought it up last week at all, but, Melbourne, for all their kind of class defenders, they've had some shocking games of football, and that defense has looked pretty fucking average
Mhm.
this year. And again, I don't think it's necessarily because May and Lever and McDonald, Christian Salem have all been out of form. It's just because the pressure up the field is lacking.
Yeah,
And yeah, the defenders are left to pick up the pieces. Asava, I also checked was over the weekend, and I think he was top 10 for 1%ers. I think he's top 20 for spoils, top 10 for spoils as well. So there's there's for all like the kind of criticism on him in particular, there's still a lot to build on. And I've said it before and I say it again. Like, I didn't expect him to be the finished product immediately. Hopefully the team as a whole, like, this game's a circuit breaker and we can again build towards the end of the season. And I dare say with improved overall game, that defense will look a lot more settled, especially with the inclusions of some more defensive and accountable small to mid-sized defenders. Because I'm happy to leave Houston and Farrell as the attacking flair. I would kind of, obviously they're defenders, so when the opportunity is there to defend, I absolutely expect them to defend. But yeah, those kind of other role players around them, the tools and those attacking defenders, I think that will help with our defensive structure. Yeah,
and that really is, and that's kind of what we've talked about for weeks as well, is that it is the pressure up the field and the help for the ball coming in, because we've seen the worst of our defense has often been when those guys are one out, or when it's a particular last few weeks when we're actually getting smashed in inside 50s when things were really bad. It was the repeated entries, and that's when you'd see some of those
crucial turnovers.
Yeah, and then you'd see like the Isava Miles Bergman collision kind of happened in a period of pressure, and it just feels like that's when those kind of things fall apart. But as we saw in games like Geelong, when Isava had a really good game, when everything else,
I think he got votes. Votes.
Yeah, he might have got votes from us too. That's always a tough game sometimes when you have a game like that, because there's a few that pop up. But yeah, that's probably what I was impressed with as well. I brought this Sava thing up more as a devil's advocate, really. But it was also, I did also wonder just if they do. Again, I expect him to come back in, because I just think you need him to be, if you're going to make a run, you need him to be playing and in form if he's fit. So,
David King was saying on SCN on Monday or yesterday, as we record, that like it won't be long before we see Isava in the forward line. And again, they were talking about how dysfunctional our forward line was, and because our defense looked so good without him. And I was just like, it's not. That would be going completely against our philosophy of recruiting him and his reasons for coming to our club. If we put him in the forward line, he's probably just going to ask for a trade back to Geelong or something like that, or fucking Hawthorn. Like, you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like I said, when our team as a whole has been in better form, him and our defense have looked better. And I'm glad, like I said, that Aaliyah took a bit of accountability, because the pressure coming in doesn't absolve them completely.
Yeah.
For losing some of those defensive battles. Like, they've all needed a bit of a lift, but you could say that about 23 players.
Yeah. As we've said, that before this, talking about the midfield having a good game for once, that's part of the reason that the defense has been under so much pressure.
Isn't it funny how that works?
Yeah.
And they had to absorb a lot of pressure in the last quarter, because St Kilda had a sniff. They banged a couple on, and they were getting the run of the green. It'd be nice if we actually kind of put someone on Wangani Malera and Bradley Hill at certain stages of the game. They had a bit too much space to my liking. But yeah, St Kilda, they had their run of momentum, and our defense had to hold up. And by and large, I thought they did.
Yeah, I mean, to hold on to a 1 point, 2 point lead, whatever it was, for the last 10 minutes of the game. 10 minutes of the game, really. It's that's very difficult to do, to hold a team back from. And you have Jack Steele missed one late. That was actually
Higgins played a true Higgins game, where he just tries to do too much. His kicking's off. He's inaccurate. goes for a snap. Around the body, 20 meters out, and doesn't even make the distance.
Yeah. I thought that Jack Steele kick late in the game where it basically
Was that where Sweet touched it?
It was the one. I don't know if Sweet touched it. No, it was the one that.
Oh no,
it got punched in on the behind post, which
yeah.
I mean, if everything else goes the same, then you go, well, Georgiades kicks a point on the siren anyway, so you're going to win. But again, sliding doors. If that goes through for a point, who knows what happens after that? And it's a tie game at that point. So I thought that's the 2 minutes to go or something like that. So I thought that was really actually quite important that they just get a fist on it, and rather than going through.
Well, the funny thing is like I was like, oh fuck, it's a throw in. Like they've got an opportunity for a stoppage goal.
I guess that's the benefit of watching it after the game, like after the events have happened. Yeah, because I watched that and thought, geez, that's lucky that it didn't go through. But for a point, obviously it wasn't anywhere near being a goal, so that wasn't a concern. Soon after it left the boot, but yeah, as it hit the post, I thought, geez, that's a moment. And then
definitely in hindsight, yeah. I watched the replay and I was like, hang on, they've got their final score here. I'm pretty sure it was. And
when like, he's lining up,
a pretty gettable shot. Like, what happened here? And then it happened. I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, punched pretty hard into that post too.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a real interesting kind of one of those games where it's like this is the kind of thing that only happens, and you only notice in a game like this, like a shot being punched into the point post with a couple of minutes to go. You'd usually just not notice it, but that's when I was watching the replay, I was like, geez, that seems really important. So I guess a major thing to touch on now, and then we can anything else you have we can get to. But obviously the post game, Hinkley's emotion was I thought really it was really touching to see. Obviously you and I, which we talked about the game and talked about the Hinkley stuff at length last week, and had our criticisms as well as our pushbacks to the worst of the discourse. And it's really interesting to see his response. I loved seeing it. I love seeing that emotion, and obviously to push back on one notion, it's not staging, it's not acting. You don't do like you could just see that he just got caught in the moment, and his response just saying these good boys, like it's all that he could come out.
Yeah, I know.
All that he could come out with was just like these. Geez,
good boys.
Yeah, good.
Kind of just grounded him a little bit. After saying that, instead of letting it unravel.
And I'll let you talk about it. I thought what was really impressive about it was kind of Sarah Jones handled it really well, because she probably wasn't expecting to get the emotion, and she just and credit to her for just a good moment between those two in an interview. But you could see she kind of asked about the pressure and those things, and you could have maybe a lesser person could have easily said, yeah, well, the pressure sucks, the fans, I'm disappointed. But he put it on himself. He said, no, that's part of the job. And it's unfortunate, but this is footy. It's pressure comes when
the job. And he said,
yeah. And I said, I it's an unfortunate part of it, but I want the job. So that's part of it. It's kind of like any job you do has unsavory things. Like, even the most, if you talk to a Hollywood actor that's, makes $10 million a movie, they still sometimes have to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and spend 4 hours in a makeup chair and then get covered in fake blood that's really sticky and uncomfortable, and they have a shit day at work. They want the job, but there's unfortunate parts about it. For Ken Hinkley as a coach, the unfortunate part is the pressure that's come. And he also, what I really respected too, is he said it was warranted. He said the pressure is warranted. He didn't say anything about the unsavory sides of that pressure and the dark side of it, as far as some fan discourse or media, whatever you want to talk about. But he did say, look, we've been playing poorly, and he said, I kind of appreciate that we've been playing poorly, and that's on us. We need to improve that. There's nothing. The way that we can get out of this is to be better, and we kind of made a step towards that today. And he took the high road, which kind of speaks to we've tried to say that a lot on this podcast, is that he's a good bloke. And and I did see a few comments on Twitter because people kind of were like, yeah, no one's saying he's not a good bloke. And I'm like, well, no, I've seen a lot of that on Twitter that people call him a con artist and a grifter and
you're effectively
yeah,
calling him a shit
yeah,
bloke.
and I've literally seen him referred to as many more unsavory things that I won't repeat on the podcast. So yeah, there's a lot of people that have been really, really nasty about it. And again, we understand the emotions that are behind that because we are both frustrated as well and we want improvement. And we do both probably see the end of the road with Ken Hinkley coming. And if it happened, whenever it happens, we'll be accepting a move with it because we both, but this kind of performance and both the fact that the players were he kind of ending that interview with I think I'm paraphrasing, but Sarah Jones kind of asked these players they're with you, and he said no doubt, just no doubt. And the players and Zach Butters in his post game intimated that as well. And every notion I've heard from the players has basically been intimating that as well, that they're all with Ken Hinkley. So a really powerful moment, and certainly has captured the kind of AFL 360 had a fair bit to talk about. Obviously, the first crack guys who were first crack at it had some talk about it as well. The one thing I will say, Jared Waitley kind of made a notion about the fans, which I do. The more I looked at it, because I didn't watch the game live and certainly wasn't at the Brisbane game, the more I saw about it, and the more I saw about the personal side of it, that it was every time they were showing him, that is a bit nasty. I still think that was an unloading of frustration. Unfortunately, Hinkley was just the target of it. Waitley did still talk about the people that sing Never Tear Us Apart, and I think Gary Lyon did as well. I still don't like the media doing this fans against the club thing. The fans, I think Gary Lyon or Waitley said, yeah, it's his job, so they should be more respectful. And it's like, I'll refer to a banner that you see at European soccer games a lot when fans are protesting something that owners are doing, and certainly when a major part of European football tried to break away and make a super league, and the fans basically fought back and said, no, we're not doing it. And then all the big clubs said, oh no, we're going to lose all our fans if we do this. Football without fans is nothing. I don't like, I appreciate that they're trying to say, yeah, the fans should be better about it. The fans are frustrated. Yes, they shouldn't be. The personal stuff is wrong, and that's why we're supportive of what Hinkley, and really happy with how Hinkley handled the weekend. I just get annoyed with the media they keep bringing back to that booing, and I get it, but also stop treating the fans as the other, because football without fans is nothing. And certainly AFL football as a sport that is still far more provincial in the world grand scheme of sports around the world. English Premier League's got billions of dollars in it. NFL, billions and billions of dollars. AFL is very, very well off these days, despite the pandemic and everything. They're still doing fine. Lots of money in it, but it is a lot smaller in the grand scheme of sports. Fans are the core part of it, and they still are, of every sport. So I would prefer the media kind of try to toe that line a bit better, but I understand what they're trying to say is that, and they are, at the end of the day, just saying this is a human being and try to treat him better, which I do understand that. I just would rather them talk about it a bit differently rather than saying treat the fans as the other, because there is a lot of fans that may have took part in the booing that are actually decent ones, and not the ones that we're talking about on Twitter that sometimes get a bit nasty as well. So it's a delicate subject. There's a lot of complicated aspects in it, particularly in our own unique situation with the time span that Hinkley's been there. But to get back to it anyway, and I'll let you, I've talked a lot longer than I expected to there. But I've been thinking about it a lot since I saw the footage, and then just watching the post of the AFL 360 and stuff a couple of hours ago. Getting back to it though, I really appreciated his honesty and authenticity in that moment, and I think it should be a reminder to everyone to be empathetic, because he is a human being, and he is not and I think I noted it last week too, like for the people that keep saying, oh, if he was a decent human being, he'd walk away from the job. It's like, no, he wants the job. He literally said those words. He wants the job. He thinks he can do the job. Whether or not you believe you think he can do the job, I'm
just going to make myself unemployed.
Yeah.
For shits and gigs.
He thinks he can do the job. And to be fair, he's got if half the players were like, we don't fucking like you, but it seems like by and large, the players still do. And the players are intimating that as well, and have all the way along. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll let you. You can have a moment because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling about it because it's a very complicated situation we find
I mean,
ourselves
yeah, a
in.
couple of weeks in a
Yeah.
row where the club's in a very interesting point, is
Hmm.
at an interesting point at this time. But yeah, and the fans criticism, I think it's not right because yeah, everyone's kind of getting bundled in together, and
Yeah.
even Kane Cornes himself is simplifying his comments to Port Adelaide fans, and
Hmm.
like by and large, yeah, there's a large group of people who aren't acting like rabid fucking dogs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the more galling part of it, is like everyone's getting bundled in together, and it's just yeah, and you run
Hmm.
the risk of going it's the fans against the club, and it's just not entirely true.
Hmm.
But yeah, uh, immediately after the game and in the aftermath, there was some absolute fucking whoppers getting around.
Hmm.
Like I could, in equal parts, I couldn't believe it, but I obviously could believe it because there's a lot of people out there who clearly lack a bit of emotional awareness,
Yeah.
like, and vulnerability in their own self. And it's the internet, right? It's, you're behind a screen and you can say whatever the fuck you want with no real repercussions. And
Hmm.
yeah, people love that shit. And there's a lot of, and even though, so there's people who are strong in their convictions and whatnot, and they concoct these narratives in their mind and they like to purport them online. But then there's also fence sitters and people who aren't strong in their own convictions, and they go, oh, well, like he's pretty consistent in his, or he or she, their thoughts. So I'm going to jump on board too. And like, if I make this comment, then I'm going to get some engagement as well. And it's going to make me
Hmm.
feel good. And there's a lot of that fucking shit running around. And like, if you if you think that Ken Hinkley was staging being choked up and on the verge of tears, like, you honestly, yeah, I think that you are probably a bit too afraid to show vulnerability in your own life, and you
Hmm.
do need a lesson in emotional awareness. And like, it's okay. Like, everyone at certain stages of their life has needed a check on their kind of, yeah, emotional maturity and whatnot, and
Hmm.
whether that's through professional help or not, like, it is available. Like, I've definitely tapped into that side of life myself before,
Yeah.
but
Same
yeah,
here. Yeah.
to say that, like, yeah, I'm an emotional person, and I can like, as soon as that crack in his voice happened, like, yeah, he just like, oh wow, like,
Hmm. You can
yeah,
tell, like,
it's a quite a tender
mhm.
moment, like, and yeah, Fox Footy and Sarah Jones got him, like, it was an opportune moment to interview him.
Particularly the
And
fact the game was close too, I think aided that because he was
yeah,
probably like
it
if
all goes into the melting pot.
they'd been up by 40 at three-quarter time, he probably would have checked his emotions sooner. But like he was probably at a heightened emotional state right through the game.
As
He
we all
watched,
were.
yeah, and he watched his boys, those good boys,
Yeah, yeah.
battle hard that last quarter and win the game. Win the game for themselves certainly, but there's a certain aspect of a lot of those guys that Zach Butters is one that I often point to as one that said that refers to Ken as a father figure, particularly because Butters had those issues with his family early coming over. I think it was his sister battling some addiction, which she's doing well. I won't speak any more of it because I don't know the ins and outs of it well enough, but there was some issues there that when around when he got drafted was when that stuff popped up. So he was drafted, moved interstate, had that stuff come up, and he went and talked to Ken about it, kind of, and Ken, took him under his wing and helped him grow with the club while they handled that kind of delicate issue of what he was dealing with in his personal life. Um, so they see him as a father figure. He's an emotional coach. I thought it was really interesting. Interesting. I think it was on. I can't remember if it was on the couch. I don't know if you watched it, but Jordan Lewis talked about it and talked about how much he would love
I
to
haven't
play
seen
for
it, no.
Jordan. Yeah, it's whatever show Jordan Lewis was on last night. He talked about how much he'd love to play. That's the kind of coach he'd want to play for. He wants a coach that
Hmm.
taps into that side of it. because I think, and if it's, I might be conflating two shows, but I think it was on the couch because then Gary Lyon's talking about this is because I think Gary Lyon
He
was
must have been
talking.
filling in for someone, maybe.
Yeah,
If Jordan Lewis was on it.
I watched
I think
360.
Bucks is away, so
Yeah,
that
that
would
might
make
have been why.
sense.
Because it was Beveridge and Scott that were on Brad Scott that were on it was coaches night on
360.
360. So yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
on the couch. Because Gary Lyon talked about the set, like because it was him and Derm and a few others that were getting ready. They were in the Fox Footy studios and they were watching, and he said they were all talking and jibber jabbering and whatever. And then when the Hinkley post game thing started, he just said everyone went quiet and started listening. It was just this moment that we all just realized something was happening. We watched and he didn't extrapolate. He started talking about how Dermot Brereton was kind of sitting there, kind of like, oh, kind of like back in my day, but he didn't go further than that. And then because then Gary Lyon went on to just say, no, this is footy these days. It's changed. It's like humanity has changed and become more aware of the fact that people can be vulnerable and emotional, and that's foot. And so there is space for an emotional coach. And he kind of said basically, he said it in a positive way, saying, I like it, I don't mind it. Because he said, oh, I wanted to go back home and watch it again and see it for a second time to make sure how I saw it originally. And he said, yeah, no, that's how I saw it, which is interesting coming from Gary Lyon, who's part of that late 80s, early 90s footy world. Whereas Jordan Lewis is very much recent, a few years retired, part of that new age. And so his point of view probably makes sense. But yeah, Gary Lyon kind of showing some evolution, like showing that you can grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought that was really interesting, kind of getting those perspectives. And then, and so it's kind of cool that it has captured some of that world. And certainly it is part of it because they've all been in raptures over the turmoil that was last week as well, because it is good for media. It is good. They get the talking points.
Oh, yeah. And the sadistic part of me was just like, oh, Port's getting talked about a lot. Like, where can I hear Port? Even though it was all mainly negative. But I was super surprised to see it. Yeah, we're on the agenda on AFL 360 last night, and we had our own little segment. I thought that was a bit
with
funny.
the
Obviously it's off the back of last week.
Was it the Never Tear Us Apart cover? Like but
I thought that was funny because they used that in both regards. So when if for the negative they have the Never Tear Us Apart cover going on, like as a bit of like, hey, this is your song. And then like in the positive on last night's show, they had it in there. I was like, wait, you're using that for both, like you cheaters. And as I commented on a Facebook post, like the whole Never Tear Us Apart thing it's got nothing to do with fan to fan, fan to club, like whatever. It's the club against the SANFL. Like that's
it's the club against any outside force that tries to diminish. Yeah, I mean, yes,
I think it holds weight in regards to like Port Adelaide and its brand, the Magpies brand, being fucked over by the SANFL when we decided to enter the AFL. Like that's how I remember it being kind of introduced, and that's the essence of it. So then when
and it's the one club thing as well.
Exactly. Because in 2014 we went to Adelaide Oval, and that's when we regained our license from the SANFL too, and the one club,
bringing
teams in the
Magpies back to being able to be at Albion again, and all that stuff.
And then when the Victorian media, when they're looking at it, they're like, oh, Never Tear Us Apart. You're going, oh, you're against the opposition, or you're tearing each other, and it's kind of a separate topic. But they used it on both sides of the story, so that's weak. I'll just go back to what I was saying before. Like if you think that Ken Hinkley that was putting on a performance, then you can't see the forest from the trees, in my opinion. And you've already built a narrative, and you've got your opinion. And I think by and large, everyone kind of agrees. Even his most hated critics, or the critics who hate him the most, should I say, it would all say that he's always been a good father figure, and that may be part of the downfall. But Like, you're already like, and I said it to you off air, and I'll kind of rehash it, but like, these hypercritical sections of our fan base like to hang shit on quote unquote happy clappers who just go to the games and they go, oh yeah, go team, coach is great, like, yeah, blah 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 blah. But they've also built this narrative that's sitting in their mind where they're to the point of nitpicking, and they've also landed in this narrow-minded field of opinion. And they apparently can't see the similarities between the people that they're criticizing from a fan point of view and themselves. Like, you're on polar opposites of the spectrum. Like, that's obvious. But usually, two extremes of any issue are extreme in essence for a reason, and it's because you're so narrowly focused on whatever your opinion or side of the fence is that you don't want to appeal to reason. And like, yeah, that interview was great. Interview was great to just hold it, like, to show an aspect of like, yeah, people are fucking human, and yeah, he's just doing a job. He's a great person. Whether he's brought us success or not doesn't take away from the fact that he is just a guy trying to do his job. And as we mentioned last week, the club, in a greater sense, the board and whatnot, have a lot to answer for themselves, and he's just copping the brunt of it, particularly from these people who just can't help it fucking get online and continue that ridiculous narrative and try and pick him apart as a human. Like, yeah, calling him, yeah, con artists and whatnot. It's just a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, because as we said, we talked about it last week. So anyone that's listening to us for the first time, we've certainly had our criticisms of where the club's at, which, you know, Hinckley being the head coach is, you know, an irremovable part of that. He's part of the entire discussion, but it doesn't. We always try to just exist in that, whether you call it a gray area or a middle ground, which isn't fence sitting. It's just actually what humans do is recognize that not everything, there's nothing that's, nothing is black and white. I was watching Clear and Present Danger last night. It was just a perfect mid-90s like action espionage political thriller, which is obviously Tom Clancy, but there's just that moment where they're talking about like the moral complexities of inserting soldiers that are operating under, kind of like under like beneath government oversight, and Harrison Ford's character's having a shouting match with the government guy, and the world's not black and white, Jack. It exists in gray. And I'm just like, that's like kind of like what we're doing is like, it is like, yes, you can criticize Ken Hinckley and you can criticize the club and you can not be happy with where it's going, where it's been, like where we're at right now, because you and I are not completely happy. But we also do recognize the competition's crazy, but we think we're good enough to be at the top end of that. So we have underachieved in some of these matches, and some of the losses have been very deeply concerning. It's not like we brought up some of those stats about how we lose a lot more matches heavily than some of the other teams of the past couple of years have. But you can also, it doesn't mean you're a happy clapper either. It means you just, if you're not like hating Ken Hinckley and you can recognize some of the good things he's doing, it doesn't mean you're a happy clapper, because we recognize.
Yeah, that's a bullshit.
It's just such an annoying
point of view. And that's what I mean is like, you're like, you, the hypercritical person of Ken Hinckley and the regime or whatnot, you hang shit on people for having their blinkers on, but you in essence do too. Like, there is, like, you can remain objective. And again, perhaps it comes down to a bit of an emotional maturity. And I don't want to sit here and sit on any high horse or anything. That's not the type of person that I like to be. But some of the things being fucking slung around online just show like you need a fucking bit of self-reflection yourself before you fucking get your fingers working on a keyboard. And yeah, like even immediately after the game, it's like, oh, we didn't win this by 10 goals, so Ken should just be sacked because of that. And it's like, we played fucking St. Kilda. Like every team's had a bad run of form. This is a team that their average losing margin is 16.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly due to the fact that they've lost one game by 10 goals and one game by 6 goals. And if you take them out, their average losing margin is 8. But all of a sudden, we should have beaten them by fucking 10 goals. Like,
Yeah.
And Hinkley should be sacked because, and he's a con artist and he's putting on a fake cry and he's probably, recruited Steven Spielberg to give him lines or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, and you mentioned Jordan Lewis before, and I thought about this afterwards. It's like you're saying Jordan Lewis in his assessment on Fox Footy in the post-match, just saying about how good road wins can be, and like footy's not always easy. This is a fucking triple premiership player, quadruple premiership player.
He was there in 2008 as well, wasn't he? Was he? Yeah.
Either way,
that's neither here nor there.
Part of a very successful football club, and even him, like saying like road wins are away, footy's fucking hard. Like these are the things that can potentially change the season or whatever, or just lift your spirits or change your turn of form. And then you're saying that he appeared on the couch, and I wish I watched it now. But like, and then Hinkley's critics are saying like, he's got all these mates in the media. Like, what the fuck does Jordan Lewis have to gain from like sticking up for Ken Hinkley, for want of a better term? Like,
what does anyone have to gain? This media protection racket thing,
conspiracy theory level areas where you're just concocting this narrative in your mind, and what does Jordan Lewis have to benefit by being on some Ken Hinkley protection racket or whatever you want to label it? I just don't understand that. And like you said, there is room to sit in a more objective headspace and that area of grey, like you mentioned before, and go, there are good that go with the bad. And fuck, like we haven't won a premiership. Like there's no denying that. Like, people can still enjoy football, and like even the game on the weekend, you can still enjoy performances from individuals in our football club, and be buoyed by the fact that like whatever the fuck happens with Ken Hinkley or not, like there's still some fucking gold there to be had, like within our team and whatnot. Like,
there's no point doing this fan thing if you're not going to, like, if literally all you're living for is the grand final and at the end of the year and nothing else matters. Like, obviously that's what we want. That's the achievement. But if you can't even enjoy the wins during a season, I just don't.
Just keep it in context.
I just don't understand the headspace you're living in, because the journey's a big part of it, and we just again plug the Patreon. Our first episode on the 2004 season is just talking about the journey to get to the finals, and it went for 3 hours because we love talking about that shit.
Well, and you said to me, we were messaging earlier today, and like if Twitter was around in fucking the early 2000s, Choco would have been Ken Hinkley. Like 1.0. Funnily,
I have seen it
right now. Would have been Ken Hinkley 2.0. It's just If you
it's not like
enjoy the little, like again, it's a life philosophy. If you can't enjoy the little things in life, if you can't enjoy the little aspects of football, like again, I'm not going to sit on my high horse and tell you how to support or call you out for the kind of person that you are, but it's just that's not how I choose to live, and it's not how I choose to support. And I prefer to keep a level head and look at all aspects. And as I've said before, lean probably more to the apologist side of things, and I'm not going to shy away from that.
Yeah, but I think it only comes from a place of being a decent, like, I've known you for a few years now, and your philosophy on life in general seems to just be recognize the human first and then figure out the rest of it. And if there's a decent human at the heart of it, then you kind of got to recognize that and treat that with the respect that it deserves, and understand that if they're a decent human at the heart of it, then you imagine that they're trying. And again, that comes down to, as we've kind of said, it comes down to the board and the oversight of the club itself as to what the direction goes forward. If I woke up tomorrow, and Nathan Buckley was coach, or Josh Carr or whoever, I'd be shocked, because it just don't, we've just won the game. So, and I don't think that's the direction the club's looking at in the next few weeks or anything like that. I think if we'd gone on and lost 5 in a row, I wonder what would have happened then.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
again,
But
and I know you and
football
I
happens.
and we've just won the game. So, I wouldn't.
Yeah, and this weekend will be like how we back it up.
Yes,
It's just
which is
as important as the game just gone.
Mhm.
We all understand that. We all understand that it wasn't the perfect game. But again, football history would tell you that sometimes you just need to snap a losing streak however you fucking can.
yeah, that Sydney win which was only a 2-game losing streak last year. That wasn't. I remember
Similar
doing.
heat though.
I remember doing the review for that one, and I think I talked about it in saying that we played about 1.5 good quarters, and we found ourselves we just played enough good footy in patches to
stick it out.
Get over the line, and then get the benefit of I can't even remember the player that dropped that Aaliyah spoiled on the line, but just a little bit of luck there too. Sills Wilfley, yeah, that's just an all-time footy moment. The last thing I want to say before we get into, as you were talking about, good moments within the games, and it's going to be fun when we get through to Sweeney and goal of the week, because we actually had some pretty good stuff out of what was a dire game on, as people said on Twitter anyway. But I found it interesting in the commentary of the Hinkley comments and just the win in general, that people were like, "Oh, geez, this win is useless because then it's going to take the media pressure off." But then 3-4 days ago, everyone that was complaining about the media pressure now coming off was complaining that the media pressure hasn't come because of the protection racket. So
or just barracking for someone's downfall, like further than that pantomime kind of region where you're hoping for an opposition's downfall or your rival's downfall or something like that, hoping for someone's personal downfall. And again, like our club ethos of never giving in or whatnot, that's what you're barracking for, a person or a body to give in. And again, like it's a conflicting kind of prophecy that
if the players had legitimately given up on the coach, then we'd see that, but we didn't see that on the weekend. So we've just got to
I think we will.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We've just got to roll with it until it comes to an end, which, I think if nothing changes as far as the postseason success or the end of the season doesn't go as we
if
all
we
hope,
lose
then
this weekend, like the pressure will come back.
Particularly if it's in a rough fashion, as a lot of our losses have come, that'll be
I'm not dull to the fact that if we don't build on Sunday and we go backwards again, then necessary criticism will come our way. But
we can only comment on what we saw on the weekend, which was a fighting win and a coach showing some emotion, and again some people deciding to find some criticisms in that, which just aren't warranted, and it's just poor humanity on
empathy
show.
Empathy is free, and studies have shown that the more empathy you show, the better you will feel as a person. Like it's one of Newton's laws, equal and opposite reaction.
Absolutely.
Extensively. Again, I really don't want to sound like a guy sitting on his high horse, because I fucking hate that. I
think it's okay to do that when people are coming out and saying things like, it's a performance act. It's okay to sit in a high horse.
That's just bullshit. That's huge.
It's okay to sit in a high horse and say that's bullshit.
Knock that out of the park.
Before we get into, it will transition into the votes now. If you don't have anything game specific that won't come up, votes, awards, all that fun stuff we've got coming up.
I'm good to move on.
And interesting. Interestingly, to get into the before we get into the votes, we'll do the awards first, and then we'll get into the votes, and I'll bring that up. So, just to touch back on, I sometimes forget to do this, so I do apologize. It's just my bad organization in my notes. Actually, it's just forgetting, because I do extensive notes for the podcast episodes, but I sometimes forget to add things in there, like who won the Sweeney and the goal of the week last week.
I was thinking about that.
Because you're probably sitting there going, he hasn't said anything. So, but I do.
No, just in reflection, like You know, I do. It's a bit self-indulgent, but you know, I do listen back to our recorded episodes. Partially, it is partially self-indulgent, but also self-critiquing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh crap, we didn't
yeah.
mention last week's winners.
Yeah, no, I do it a lot. It's a lot of self. It's often because I listen back to it doing the edit, and yeah, I'm just go, oh, for fuck's sake, I didn't announce who won last week. But so last week's goal of the week nominees were the Josh Sin snap, which was I tagged on in the post as the Josh Mbappe Sin because he did the Kylian Mbappe celebration. That won over Finlayson. And I always find it interesting because the Twitter vote and Instagram vote can often be similar, but occasionally you'll get like this massive, massive difference. And Instagram evened out in the end, but started off very heavy Finlayson. Whereas Twitter was just like Sin. I keep calling him Mbappe now because it's in my notes, but it was Josh Sin, and then the Instagram one evened out, and then the Twitter one was very heavy in favor of Sin. So his snap one goal of the week. And for the Sweeney, it was you nominated the Butters one-hander grab, which once I found it eventually, yeah, when doing the edit, I was like, oh geez, this is good, and I did the edit with comparing it to the Odell Beckham Jr.
OBJ.
Yeah, the incredible catch he had in the NFL 11 years ago now, which makes me feel incredibly old.
That's wild.
Yeah. I will say, comparing the two, because I don't know if you've ever touched an NFL glove. Those things,
Not a glove, no.
those things are
Sticky.
like, yeah, oh yeah, that's a friend of mine bought one once, an Oregon one, just to have because they look cool. And yeah, and I've touched a few since because Oregon does equipment sales and stuff like that, and you see him, and that's why that ball sticks in his hand is because like if you get it in the right, you still have to kind of catch it, but it does aid you. So my bias, and I do have some bias in it as well, but yeah, Butters mark is definitely better because he doesn't have the aid of a glove that is basically essentially stick them on your hand. Not to shit on OBJ too much, but yeah, his one hander, that one did win over the Jace Burgo and Holden the ball tackle that I nominated. So you got both of your nominations got up last week, so
go me.
Good stuff. Anyway, we'll get to the spotlight first, which I get to go first this week. I brought him up earlier as my one that I'm really enjoying how he's going. Jackson Mead, really.
Like, how good of a year is he having?
And he's building every week. You can see his confidence is growing and his role is developing with that. And as I said, that first quarter run of the, because they scored first, and then Butters got that center clearance goal that is just quintessential Butters stuff that just Tua, spit on that thing. But like then it kind of went a little bit stagnant for a second. And then we had that for a couple of minutes, and then we had that 3-goal run really quickly. And Mead was just so heavily involved in that. He was involved in the sequence that got the ball out to Bergman for that nice goal from 50. He was involved in the sequence. They got the ball moving around the arc on the 50-meter arc to get the kick into Narkle. He was very heavily involved in the contested game. He had 18 disposals, 9 of them were contested, 8 score involvements, and that was it with 75% time on ground. So just with what he's doing, with the opportunity he's getting. And again, I made that Jared Schofield comparison earlier with the utmost.
That boy.
I loved Jared Schofield back in the day. So last year you were still on, again, players that come in and out a little bit as they're younger. It's hard to find a defined role for them. And I always only truly get an idea for what their role, how good they can be when they have a defined role. And Jackson Mead's really, really got a defined role now, and is embedded in the side and flourishing in that role too.
He's undroppable at this point of the season.
Yeah, just
a credit to him.
Yeah, no, I love what he's doing. He didn't. Oh, I'm teasing forward a little bit. He didn't get into my votes, but he was in consideration with a lot of others. So, so I when I was I did my votes, and then I was looking at the spotlight, and I was there was a few, but then when I saw his name, I was like, well, I couldn't quite get him into the votes, but he was close. So, just based on it was eye test again too, because he was really
Yeah, I know exactly what
he
you're
just
talking about.
he shone on the field. Like if players that were having a definitive moment in a game could glow, then that's kind of what he was doing to me. Just every time he did stuff, he just popped off the screen.
Yeah,
So
he's
yeah,
a genuine role player.
yeah,
And I think it was
that
Bix
was
and
some
Bushy
flair.
actually
Yeah,
to speak of them. I think it might have been them this morning. They were talking about again, like our midfield mix has been spoken about a lot this year, and like we've obviously got the flashy, dynamic players in Butters, Rosie, and JHF, but then
Mhm.
now like with Mead coming on, we've got the defensive Drew and Wines has gone a bit more role player ish.
Mhm.
Even though I still expect him to be a leader and fucking smashing it in contested possession. But then, yeah, Drew Wines and now Mead can kind of offer that balance,
Mhm.
so that yeah, and them being in and around the ball at stoppage can allow our dynamic players to be dynamic. And it's a credit, yeah, again, a credit to him for improving his own game. And
Yeah.
yeah, he'd probably be he'd probably be the most featured spotlight, because I think I've done 3, and I think this is the second time that you've
Yeah.
done Mead, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. So he's having a good year.
I have to go back. It would be interesting to go back through because I don't actually keep note of it because it's more of a segment rather than an actual award thing. I'd have to go back
Yeah,
through the episodes to hear, but yeah, he has featured a lot, which I think just speaks to his influence in the role that he's got. Again, we like to talk about players and their influence based on the role they're given, and he's absolutely excelling in the role he's been given.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. My spotlight is it's a bit of a left field one, but I've actually gone for Jeremy Finlayson. Now,
Oh, yep.
Uh, his stats don't jump off the screen. He had 9 disposals in total. Uh, However, 5 of those were in the third quarter, where I thought that was his best period of the game. But
Hmm.
for me, so Finlayson, I feel is if everyone's in form, he's in our best 22 for several reasons. He's quite crafty. He has a certain level of football smarts that when he and the team are in form come to the fore. He has a bit of mongrel, which can be looked upon negatively because sometimes you will see him kind of admonish a teammate in its appearance. But I love that bit of grit. I think you need that in a balance of a team. Like obviously Zach Butters is getting a lot of kind of criticism maybe for his kind of mongrel and it
Hmm.
kind of spilling over. Finlayson, it falls in that bucket, and I think you need that in a football team. That silky skills, but even as early, he had no possessions in the first quarter, but that teamwork off the ball, I can't remember if it ended up in a goal, but there was just a foray forward, and he didn't possess the ball, but a teammate did, and then he put on a genuine shepherd. Some of
Hmm.
those little aspects of his game, and I thought he built into the game. And then in that third quarter, he had a goal assist. Oh no, it should have been a goal assist to Willem Drew, where
Ah.
he held a level of composure around 50, spotted up Willem Drew, I think 20 meters, 25 meters out, fairly in
Hmm.
front. Should have been a goal assist. And then he had that ball on the 50-meter line where he was going to hand it off, and I have no idea why it got called back to him because
That
it
was
seems like a
weird.
fairly common passage of
Yeah.
play. But then he, through force, kind of had to go for the kick himself, and he nailed it. And like just the passion, I
Comfortably
like
too.
passionate people. Yeah, that's what I was saying in the commentary. And Ken brought him up. I think it might have been asked as a question. Ken brought him up in the post-match press conference and just kind of alluded to the fact that at his best, he's a very important cog in our team, and it's more a spotlight on in similarity to the team as a whole. Is we've had that kind of circuit breaker of getting the win, then how we back it up this
Hmm.
coming Saturday, and particularly how Jeremy Finlayson backs up what I believe was kind of not a fantastic game, but it was the stepping stones to where he needs to be, in my opinion. And yeah, just some of those team aspects and some of the efforts that he put in as the game wore on, as that player who's in an age bracket where he needs to be a leader on the field as well. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, highlight his kind of snapshot within the game.
Yeah, no, that's a good, and I love a left of field pick. You know that, so that's a good one too, and definitely goes against some of the more popular picks that sometimes you can find. So that's a good one to just kind of note those little things, and geez, some of those misses just really burned some really nice goal assist possible moments because that Willem Drew miss and a few others. But no, a really good pick. And as you said, the passion when he kicked that goal, and everyone, I think Logan Evans was the first one that got to him for a big boisterous hug too. So that was cool to see. And obviously Evans had a nice goal there in that third quarter as well. I think broke the drought there before Finlayson kicked that one a minute or two later. So
yes.
All right. One to watch. I almost went with Marshall, but I felt that was a bit unfair, being that he did go off injured. So whether he was battling something a little bit earlier, but there is some concerns there still with his form. And this is one I think I've gone with a few times, but I find the role of Darcy Byrne-Jones fascinating, and it's not at all that I think drop him or anything like that. It's just he has these period, like start of his year was really good, then he dropped off for a couple of weeks and then had a really good period again. Obviously the Ole Hawthorn win was an incredible moment and lots of fun. But then he has a game where he has sorry, I'm just scrolling back up through my notes, 7 disposals, only the one behind from a shot that another decent goal. He should kick those ones, playing his role. And just I don't know if it's I guess possibly forward line structure. Like, he seems to actually play pretty well when he's got Willie Rioli playing well next to him. In that forward line. So they, just could be personnel down there and finding his role in certain games. But it's just would be nice to see him find a bit more consistency as that, being that we're missing Sam Powell-Pepper as well. And it was interesting that, Jed McEntee got dropped from this one as well. Probably just would have hoped to see a bit more from him. But not one that I ever want to see dropped. Some Port Adelaide fans might differ on that, but I do value the role that Darcy Byrne-Jones can play on this side, particularly the way he has gone at times this year. It's just I would like to see him find just that consistency to have a bit more of an impact. I don't know I didn't actually look up his pressure acts, so whether you've seen that. Maybe he did have
he was second for Port. For pressure acts with 19.
So he does still play a role down there. I'm glad I brought that up because I was just looking at the stats now. I was like, I didn't have that because I would have liked to have seen that to add that to. So thank you for providing that context.
He's with a group of people who got 3 tackles, which was 4th. When you're with a group of a few, then I can see where you're coming from, and in a game against St Kilda, maybe it's tough for someone like him to feed. You just want him to kick that goal. It kind of just lifts it up a little bit, and you ticked off the aspect of your game on top of that pressure. And I guess, it just kind of shows, like, with Willie being out and relying on McEntee and DBJ to kind of offer that defensive accountability. It just, like, Sam Powell-Pepper is one player and he does all of the things that those 3 players are doing, and just kind of shows how valuable he is to our team, SPP. But fair call. I'll be watching.
No, DBJ.
I was on AFL tables and he's nearly played 200 games, DBJ.
Yeah, so, I meant to. I do want. I don't think they've got any milestones coming up, but I keep forgetting to look at that going, because we're always review first and then we tack the preview on at the end, and I keep forgetting to look at it. But I assume that's not coming up yet. But he's been around a long time. Like, I still remember that debut when he came in, bloodied face, and he's a cult hero, and I love him. Like, I love Darcy Byrne-Jones. I know some people are indifferent on him or straight up don't like him and want him dropped every time he drops off form. So yeah, I don't want it to be read as bringing him up as I'm hypercritical. It's just I do just want, because I really like his role when he's really playing well, but it's just like you want to see him pop up with a few more, even just getting the opportunities to kick goals, or just because I just didn't notice him much. I think that was part of it. And then again, that's part of the game. And I usually get 2 watches of the game in, obviously being live and then replay. I only got 1 in, so whether that could have changed on seeing it, watching it back again, that could have changed. But again, I would have probably gone Todd if he hadn't gone off injured. And so I just decided to shift gears. It was really actually only an hour or 2 before the pod where I kind of thought about it again. I said, I just thought I couldn't go with Todd because he did go off injured and how much he was hampered by that early. But that was where I went.
Yeah, fair call. Well, I did go for Todd.
Hey, there we go. See, tandem up, tandem up well.
And it's just, again, I think I've brought him up once before as a watch, just because it's kind of come full circle for a similar reason, that like if he's injured, if he's carrying an injury, or if he's battling through something, then I don't know what the big reason is to make him push through that at AFL level.
Yeah.
If he needs to spell completely, or whether he needs to spell in the SANFL, like he's clearly not playing. He's clearly not the best version of Todd Marshall right now. And I think it's compounded by the fact that his kicking has eluded him. And whether that's conjoined, if it's mental or if it's physical. And it seems like he's just kind of stabbing at the ball a little bit. And that would suggest that it's physical. But they both kind of just roll into each other after a certain point in time. And we saw it with Georgiadis when he had the yips, albeit it wasn't. I don't think it wasn't physical. It wasn't physical at all, but it just that compounding effect of everything that goes on. I mean, I think Todd's had maybe 7, 8, 9 scoring shots in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and like if he's converting based on his historical accuracy,
it was 67%, as we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, he's not. Some of his contested, getting outmarked in a contested fashion is putting a dim light on some of the other work that he's doing, like both up the ground and within the forward line. Like I thought one of his opportunities, I thought he found as much space as he could have in a couple of times, and that ended up being shots on goal, which he didn't convert. So yeah, much like my point the last time I brought him up, like it's just a watch to see what we decide to do, because I think we can actually afford to drop him and just bring Rioli back in, like it's all for a small, if Rioli's got over his sickness. Because like I said, I think Ollie Lord is competing well now. He's a few games into his run. We've got Finlayson there. We've got some of those mediums. So Georgiadis has obviously been in great form. He had a tough game on the weekend, but I
he's
think
still moving well.
I think Wilkie put a lot more attention into him. And he kind of got in his head a little bit, George, unfortunately. And he should have been paid 2 marks that
arm
paid for whatever fucking reason. Yeah, so there's an arm chop and then a boundary umpire perceiving him to juggle a mark over the line when he didn't. It spilled out when he hit the ground. Anyway, Todd Marshall, he's my watch. I am very interested to see what happens this week, and whether he can kind of turn it around, because super important. An accurate Todd Marshall on top of his teamwork and work up the ground is invaluable. Part of our best 22.
Yeah, well, I think it would be interesting to see what happens this week, because he did go out, get subbed off with what looked like a hamstring injury, so he may not even be available. I'm not actually sure if there's any injury updates have happened, but I just know he got subbed off with some concern with his hamstring, I think it was. So I did have a similar thing, and we might save that chat for when we talk about the doggies game at the end of the episode. But yeah, I did have a similar train of thought to you as to how we handle, just in the short term, and particularly, I guess, if he's forced with injury, how we handle the selections around that, because it does seem opportune to just actually kind of shift a little bit with as you said, Finlayson, Lord, and Georgiades available there, and then Jordan Sweet can drop if they. But there's different levers you can pull there, and maybe being slightly smaller might be helpful, because we haven't been fantastic down there as tall either. So yeah, there is thing. We'll talk about that selection more when we get to the Bulldogs. Alrighty, goal of the week, which for a game that had only 8 goals for us, had a fair few contenders, I think, and you get to go first, so you get the pick of the bunch, so to speak. But I think it'll be a good one this week.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there's a few. All kind of notable in their own right. My part of my heart wants to go the first goal for Logan Evans, but I'm going to go JHF running goal in the second quarter.
He tries to get creative. It pays dividends. HORNE-FRANCIS, he'll get the protection he needs. The goals are in his sights. A couple of bounces. All we need is the finish, and that will do nicely.
Yes, this is just a superb piece of play by Port Adelaide. And it's very much a mindset, getting control of the
JHF areas, just piercing through. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that came off the back end of Jackson Mead kind of trying that grubber kick on the boundary line to get ahead, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It was,
yeah. So it was a good passage of play, both team, and then he capped it off at the end. So yeah, that's the one for me.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was a great goal too. 2 bounces on the run, and quintessential JHF stuff as well. Like, we've seen him do that a lot. He does miss occasion, but yeah. Again, I probably haven't looked at it for a while, but I'd like to see if he's still averaging his goal a game. But he does just pop up with, and his clutch gene as well. Like, I know it's not the end of the game, but the end of the second quarter that had been to tie it up with just on a minute to go. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and it's just Jason HORNE-FRANCIS running with that little bit of hair flicking out the back, and it's just
the socks up.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Nathan Buckley areas.
Yeah, which he's certainly not shy to those comparisons from the Port faithful, which we love. Yeah, all right. So that was definitely one of a decently long shortlist I've got for a game that only had 8 goals. So I'm going to do honourable mentions. I had JHFs as an honourable mention in mine. I had Jackson Mead's little snap as well, was a pretty good one, I thought. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. I even thought Lord's goal around the body, like his first one, his only one, but the first shot he had, like where he's a bit closer in than the one he completely shanked later on. The one he scored off the back of the Connor Rosie.
I think it was the combined nature of that.
But even just Lord going around the body, I always like. The guys that can execute that around the body one are good. But so you've gone with JHF. I had my top 2 that I had were. I'll give the other honourable mention thought, and you've already given it some pretty good kudos in your spotlight for Finlayson's goal was really, really good, and that was right up there for me. But it's going to be a Jason Bergman Cup again this week, because I'm going to go with Bergman's.
He's lost the football. Mead back to HORNE-FRANCIS, gives ground from outside 50. It's a long kick. It's a long kick from Bergman from about 52, and that's a brilliant goal.
When has the length, you can just see there, turn away from goal, find your numbers with a little bit more time and space. Bergman happened to be that player. Terrific kick, terrific.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that when you watch it back, it's like a stab. Like, he doesn't even put full.
Yeah, it's piercing.
It's a piercing low.
I'm Miles Bergman.
Yeah. And again, just to top off the Jason Bergman thing about it, it comes from a JHF assist as well. He dishes the handball out
Yeah.
to release him release him out there, and yeah, Bergman wheels around and kicks that one from beyond 50 with a little bit of traffic around the area, and yeah, and it comfortably makes the distance with as you said, a stabbing motion, kind of low trajectory, like still very, obviously had to get a bit of air into it, but
to make the distance, but
it's just a really good action, and again, as we talked about the Finlayson one before, we got a good celebration around it too. Yeah, and yeah, just I love that one. So yeah, good. We get
I'm very surprised that you didn't go with the Butters clearance goal in the first quarter.
I wanted to, but
like we said, there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, the weird and that one, I think when I was watching it on my phone outside the cinema, I immediately looked at that one and went, all right, that's probably going to be a nomination this week. But as I watched the replay yesterday, I was just like, there's so many good ones, and Butters features heavily in a lot of things, and I was just like, my little metric I did in my brain, because there was a lot of good ones, I went, okay, so degree of difficulty for Butters. I mean, I guess I could say that about HORNE-FRANCIS too, because I was like, that's just what HORNE-FRANCIS does. That's what Butters does. Yeah, I should have had Butters in my honorable mentions too, because it's a great goal. And what I love more about that is actually the sweet tap and Butters gather and bounce. And Butters had 7 bounces in this game. Like, he's just
yeah. Noticed he got on the end of a few bounces.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, no, that was an incredible goal. But I just like just the technique in Bergman's, what you've got to do. The degree of difficulty for Bergman's goal is more than,
because he came around the pack and went bang.
Yeah, and from one of the a decent angle too, because you're close to you're decently close to the boundary over there. So it's angle 50, and just looked fucking
Jason
good.
Bergman.
Yeah, I'm Jason Bergman. It's the Sweeney again. There's a lot that we can go with here. I get to go first in this one. So, geez, I'm still I'm torn. I'm very, very torn with the two I've got here.
Yeah, I just looked through my list and I was like, oh wait, I haven't actually settled on one.
Yeah.
So I'll see what you say.
I was hoping you. Then like I had it listed here. I was like, I should know I was going first. Since you brought it up, I'm just going to go with it because it is in my top 2. My top 2 very hard to split, but I'm going to go with the. I actually really love Jackson's Mead's kick down the line.
Good contest and combat in the air. Through the little handoff. Mead tries to get creative. It pays dividends. HORNE-FRANCIS be envious of when they're up and running, and scores are tied up again.
Yes, this is just a superb piece of play by Port Adelaide.
For the Jason Horn.
Keeping that ball alive.
Yeah, because that's the stuff that you love. That's those little 1%, those little things in a footy game. And the best teams that are winning premierships are always doing those little things. Like I remember,
getting a bit inventive when they need to be.
Yeah, and finding the out of the box ways to, because the game, that's one of the things we love about Australian football is just the different things you can do with this unique game that we have and an oval shaped ball that we use in a game that we do, and the fact that Mead he genuinely sees that that's an out opportunity. It's not like he sees that's an out opportunity because he knows there's space down the field and he has to, but there's still a degree of
defender
execute. Yeah. There's a degree of the execution to both kick the ball in a way that it's actually going to spiral down the field and not like, go left or right or just, or obviously just shank it into into the little pack that's in front of you. He got it around the pack that was there, and I assume he saw a white jersey. I'm not sure if he knew who it was. He might have known it was HORNE-FRANCIS, but
I think,
he would have.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, but
white Guernsey, white shorts, kick it that way.
Snap it around this pack, get it rubbing down the field, and obviously HORNE-FRANCIS with his class is able to gather and do the rest of the work. But that as a moment of play and just kind of I don't think we've seen exactly this kind of thing in the Sweeney this year. So I kind of was like, I want to pop this one in there and certainly to give Jackson Mead, obviously he's had a fair bit of love this episode already, but gets himself in the Sweeney.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Like I said, he was my spotlight round one. So I'm just carrying that flag all the way through. And more than happy for the Mead love. Football's in his blood.
Yeah.
Port Adelaide's in his blood. That's Frank's it all. Was there anything else on that moment that you had?
No, I mean, I could keep talking about it, but
take a sip of beer. So an honourable mention for me was Will Loren's inboard kick in the last quarter. You know, considering the quarter as a whole lacked a lot of skill for a debutant, and it even was highlighted in that brief moment of how good of a kick it was. Like, I believe he's the second Robbie Gray selection, quote unquote. Like, Zach Butters was obviously the first recruit or draftee that we go, oh, Robbie Gray told Jeff Parker and Jason Cribb. I think Will Lorenz is the most recent one. If I'm wrong, someone will let me know. But and you know, friend of the pod, Dave Lloyd, he's mentioned the silky skills that Lorenz possesses. Unfortunately, as we've mentioned, like, he started as a sub, which I don't like for a debutant. But he came on and that kick was good. Anyway, that's an honorable mention. Spent a bit too much time on that. What I am going to go for is Jordan Sweet's rundown tackle in the first quarter.
Decides to tackle Butler, whose kick was short but effective, through Steele and Clark, and again the step that he just didn't have the freedom to take has brought about his undoing.
It was a great forward handball, and you can see St Kilda there really trying hard, but I mean, that's just bad awareness. How could he not know that player was there?
You mentioned him earlier in the pod, and just about his kind of influence around the ground, and you know, unfortunately, Rowan Marshall kicked a few goals, but Sweet's around the groundwork overall was definitely much improved on what it was against Brisbane. But he led the tackles, and then that one just kind of typified the effort that he was putting in, and foreshadowed, being in the first quarter, foreshadowed his game as a whole.
That was that one I had in my actually short list as well. My third on there is the Sweet holding the ball tackle. So it was a really good one. And it's the stuff you love to see. You know, we always talk about guys playing their role flawlessly, but again, guys kind of doing things that you're not always expecting. Jordan Sweet's not the one you're typically expecting to do a chase down tackle. So and
the commentators were like, how did they go and not see that he was there? Like, he just ran past him, and it might be a bit of like, oh, he's just a ruckman, like, whatever, forget about him. But he didn't give up on the contest, and I guess maybe that's again just a lot of that effort from the Brisbane game, which was lacking. There's little moments throughout this game, whether on the ball or off the ball, where you go, yes, effort. That's all we fucking asked for.
I will say one more honourable mention I meant to mention, and I'll do it now because I think it needs to be mentioned on the pod. Logan Evans' intercept to kick his goal was actually quite incredible.
Yeah, great awareness. Yeah.
Just
I didn't write that down probably because it was part of the goal. It was gold in my mind, but that's a good point. Don't know what Sinclair was fucking doing, but
just the fact he kind of like it kind of reminded me there was a goal in the MLS this last weekend with Major League Soccer, which is the top league in the US if you're not in the soccer circles. But a goalkeeper was kind of had possession of the ball and was going to put it on the ground in front of him and kick it out. But the opposition forward had stayed behind the goal and then just came back onto the field, and it's a perfectly legal thing to do. He hid behind. He just stood behind the keeper and waited for him to throw the ball in front of him, and then ran around him and kicked it and scored a goal. And I think it was in like the 90th minute as well.
That's so
yeah. And so the way when you see that behind the goal vision of Logan Evans, like the way he kind of just sneaks up behind and runs and perfectly times his run on the ball, kind of just made me think of that. So good awareness, and obviously at a crucial point of the game, he got us a goal. So, but again, it was very closely to the goal. So I was like, I had it in my shortlist, but I was like, there's too many. I also had the Rosie assist from the boundary in the shortlist, but I was like, not technically. I think if it was ruled back on by the umpires, they'd be like, "Well, that was a mistake." So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Jackson Mead kick down the line then, just to keep it clean." So, good times. But yeah, as we've just talked about with our honourable mentions in both sections, for a game that was apparently unwatchable, there was actually plenty of fun highlights to key in on the watch back. All right.
It's a good part of watching it without that emotion.
Yeah, exactly. You can actually
the end
enjoy.
result.
Yeah. As we get to the Player of the Year votes, before we get to it, and you get to go first in announcing your votes for this week, I just wanted to touch on probably something that features in how difficult it was for us to key in on our votes was the coaches' votes this week, which was had 9 different players get votes from the coaches, which is highlighted in when the AFL did their article releasing the weekly votes, kind of said just how unorthodox the St Kilda Port Adelaide votes were, which many reasons it could have been. Some differences between the coaches and how they view the game probably certainly was part of it. Ross Lyon certainly has his own way of thinking about football. But I think that probably, as we get into it, I know you're going first, but I know I had a lot of trouble keying in on who I wanted to have in the votes and how I wanted the votes to be structured once I had my 5. And, maybe my 5th, I was my best on ground I was pretty comfortable with, but everything down from that was difficult. So I'll let you go first, but I assume your experience was somewhat similar.
Yeah, definitely. I really I had 6 players in my mind that I wanted to fit into 5 spots, and I was almost going to ask if I could do 3 1 votes and go 3 4 5, but stick with the sanctity of the vote system. And so my honorable mention, and obviously haven't heard your votes yet, but my honorable mention is for Elia. I thought he played a fantastic game, played his role perfectly, lifted on the back of his comments on TV, just saying that he's been down. The true Elia game. Tough to miss out on votes. But my 1 vote, and this is also tough on him, but my 1 vote goes to Connor Rozee. But just because of how much I valued some of the other players, I wanted to reward them more. So Rozee had 25 disposals, 84% efficiency, 519 meters gained, 3 clearances, 5 inside 50s, 7 marks, and 20 pressure acts, which is Port's leader for the day. Number 2, I've given to Brendan Zerk-Thatcher. Immediately after the game, I put my names in, and he was in my 1 vote, but I just felt that 1 vote was a bit too tokenistic and didn't actually reflect the true value of the role that he played, in my opinion. He had, just to reel off his stats before the more pertinent point, is 13 disposals, 7 of those were contested at 100% efficiency, which we've mentioned before earlier in this episode. 3 rebound 50s, 4 tackles, 9 marks, 5 of which were intercept marks, and out of those 9 marks, 3 were contested. He had 4 1%ers, which I believe is...
I think he led the team.
That was second best,
equal
second. But I guess the most important point was that he kept Max King goalless and absolutely wiped the floor with him. To come back, because as much scrutiny as Ken was under, I guess he could probably say he was under a similar amount of heat. If Ken's the top, Zerk-Thatcher, is probably right up there in the on the podium of pressure. And for him to respond like that was fucking awesome. And that's what I mean. I couldn't just give him 1 vote. I had to give him the 2. My 3 goes to Willem Drew. I think his game probably, for a lot of people, could probably be forgotten. He had 24 disposals, 9 of which were contested, 330 meters gained, 3 clearances, 4 inside 50s, 4 tackles, 7 marks, and 15 pressure acts. I thought early in the game, he was quite influential. He just seemed to be everywhere. Again, Willem Drew in form is allowing our other players to play well too. He just everywhere I looked, he just seemed to be in the vicinity, if not in the contest. And I thought, as a new leader in our leadership group, he flew the flag admirably. And yeah, again, wanted to recognize that. 4 votes go to Zach Butters, 22 disposals, 10 contested possessions at 81.8% efficiency, 5 clearances, 7 inside 50s, touch under 570 meters gained, 5 tackles and 4 marks. Just a true Zach Butters game. Like, we were killing the center clearance, and he was a big contributor in that facet of the game. That obviously very classy goal, which he's done a couple of times now in the season. Butters, Drew, and Rosie, probably you could mix and match with their positions on this, but that's how I saw the game. And then the 5 is an obvious one. I think everyone would say HORNE-FRANCIS, 28 disposals, 8 of which were contested at 75%, 4 clearances himself, touch under 475 meters gained, 7 inside 50s too. 1 goal, 1. He also had the 2 goal assists, so 3 goal involvements, 9 score involvements as a whole, and 6 marks. Just wound it back a little bit to earlier in the season when he was in some ripping form and didn't put the team on the back. He just didn't give up. His work rate was fantastic, just getting contest to contest, just absolutely working over his opposition repeatedly, which was most pleasing, and it goes against some of the criticism from outside in regards to his game.
Yeah. The thing, I think there's a few people, I saw someone tweet about it on the weekend, and they made an astute point about how just if you think HORNE-FRANCIS doesn't work hard, then you just aren't watching. Like, it's just like he has worked his ass off since he's been at Port Adelaide, and to be fair, again, they like the North Melbourne issues, controversies, whatever you want to talk about, his time at North Melbourne are well documented about how North Melbourne, probably the communication both ways wasn't great. But yeah, if you think HORNE-FRANCIS doesn't like to work hard, then you haven't been watching footy for 2 years basically now, because he's only 20 and he's a fucking workhorse, and regularly, and just to give another shout out to the Patreon, the one area I do pop like an actual, obviously if you listen to the podcast week to week, then you can hear the leaderboard, hear us getting the votes, and you can count them up. But I actually do pop the weekly leader. I've been doing it for a few weeks now just to get into the rotation of it, but I pop the weekly leaderboard every week. I put the votes in the leaderboard on Patreon as well. So we'll obviously announce it at the end of the year. It's nothing major, but it's just a little thing that I put on there because it's work. Doing the graphics is work. So there's some stuff I'm going to put there. The leaderboard, as anyone listened to the mid-year review, where I did run over what the leaderboard was at the mid-year point on the podcast. HORNE-FRANCIS is closing in on Butters at the top, but Butters is getting votes here, which I should get into mine so that you can round them out so people can hear them all. I'll give an honourable mention. 2 people that I really wanted to fit in, but I didn't get in. One of them was Willem Drew. I had him with 2 votes at one point, and then somehow he's ended up with none.
Completely.
And it's just how it goes. And Kane Farrell, I thought, he had there was a couple of clank, but he again up there in disposal efficiency, and just everything that Kane Farrell was doing was an honourable mention as well for me. My 1 vote goes to Brendan Zerk-Thatcher. And again, he had 2 at one point. There's been a lot of players that sat there at 2 and got switched around. And if we'd done this a day later, I might have switched it again. I don't know, but BZT's ended up at the one vote for everything you said. Just, working at extreme efficiency, obviously. The intercepts, the marks, tackles as well. And obviously a key pillar in that last quarter as we held against, wouldn't call it a full-on siege from St Kilda, but they were coming. So they had to play impeccably in that last quarter to get us the win, and they did.
I thought he played with a level of anger,
Did
He
you
seemed
did you see the moment between him and Ken at the end too? Just like they had like Ken walked up to
Yeah, he
him,
kind of
did
like
lid-
just kind
yeah,
of
and
patted
they
him on the
had
chest a little bit.
like a little bit
Yeah,
of pump up, like he's done to Horne-Francis in the past after a big get, like
yeah,
and then he had a bit of a talk to him and gave him a
yeah,
hug, and you just
yeah.
see
And
there
then
was
he
like
obviously got coaches' votes too.
yes, yeah, which I
But yeah,
assume
I remember that now. You say.
I assume well he got 4 coaches' votes, so I assume he possibly got some from line as well, but yeah, it's just,
No,
um,
oh,
do you reckon Ken gave him?
I just pictured it as Ken gave him 4.
Yeah,
Because he even mentioned him in his little interview,
yeah.
that emotional interview.
I wish I was like it's moments like this, looking at these, and uh, friend of friend of the pod, Nathan Watson on Twitter reached out to me when I posted about the coaches' votes. He reached out and said. He said, it is a 5-3-1 system, isn't it? And I replied to him and said, yeah, I think, yeah, that's what it is. And he goes, I want to try and figure out how these votes were, like who gave who the vote, like where the
Yeah,
votes.
yeah.
And I said, I just in my head, I'm just like, I wish I was Rain Man. I could just immediately like do the like, Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover with the numbers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just immediately figure out, okay, this is where Ross put these 3 and 2 and 1, and then that's how they figured it out. Because I just can't figure it. Like I'm sure if I sat down for a few hours, I could come up with some theories, but it's just not worth my time. But yeah, it's anyway, my votes. So yeah, BZT at 1, Connor Rosie at 2. Again, Rosie could have been at 2 or 3. I've got and then I've got Butters at 3, which again could have been at 4. It's just for any of the. Oh yeah, my 4 is someone that you gave an honorable mention to. I had to. I just. And for reasons that you spoke about it earlier, Aaliyah kind of took some of the criticism this week and took it very maturely, as you should, and kind of put that responsibility on his own back, and then he answered it with what was an incredible stat line as well for a defender. He had 22 disposals, 10 marks, 7 rebound 50s, 9 contested possessions in that at 90% efficiency. So as is almost famous on our podcast, when people get 20 plus disposals and they operate at high efficiency,
Yeah.
is just like spit in my mouth. I love it. It's that kind of stuff just gets me going. So yeah, Aaliyah having a game like that, in a game that we needed a defensive leader, and I think I forget. I apologize if I get the name wrong, but I think Aaron on in a YouTube comments last week kind of commented about and mentioned something that you've brought up at times about leadership and maybe the missing leadership on the field at times with their young team. And I feel like Aaliyah just through example showed a bit of leadership in his role on the weekend. I sometimes find it hard to get defenders in the votes sometimes because, and it's particularly the last 5 weeks, obviously.
It's not exclusive to you either.
Yeah.
The AFL broadly struggles to recognize defenders.
Yeah. So when I kind of tried to figure out my votes this week, I just went, I need, like, with how both played, but then I just had a look at the stats and thought, yeah, BZT, as you had him in your 2 spot, and I had him there a couple of times over the course of today. He deserved to get in there. I just thought I had to get. I was like, as far as influence on the result, I think Aaliyah was near as important as anyone else. Obviously, different role and how that extrapolates out in your mind. But yeah, I had to get him up there with the 4. But as far as the 5 vote, definitely Yahtzee on that one, because Jason Horne-Francis is. It's interesting.
Beast.
Yeah, well, the most skillful player on our team and the most, unique, skilled player and best player on our team might be Zach Butters. Most influential at the moment seems like it's Jason Horne-Francis, because some of those losses we've had recently, the one thing a lot of people, the people and this is giving kudos to the people on Twitter, because I know sometimes it sounds like we're shit on, but we love a lot of the commentary we get on there. A lot of our losses recently, a lot of the commentary has been Horne-Francis is still trying in these games. Like, so he's often the one that's trying to exert influence, and just through sheer power and sheer mix of power and skills, he's definitely closing in on
that's the thing, isn't it? Usually, or like a lot of the time, some players will have one but not the other, or it's heavily outweighed. But yeah, aggression and skill just seems to be at a very good level and very even level.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of his inside 50s and goal assists, score assists and stuff like that. It's just like few other players, particularly in our team, would just think to do that or have the presence of mind. And he's actually just turned 21, but
he has,
for semantics, really, he's fucking young and fresh in the competition. And to be playing like he is, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be closing in the lead. I can't work out exactly how much, but I think he's 15 odd votes behind Butters recently. So he's going to close in a little bit with obviously taking both of our player of the week votes, obviously.
Yeah, I think across the two lots of votes, everyone who kind of deserved some votes got them in the end, really. Although we couldn't fit them all in personally, across the two sets. Yeah, everyone got.
I really like that you threw Drew in there because I tried and it's just and as I said, if I'd done it an hour later, maybe it would have changed again and Drew would have been in there because his stat line
his first half particularly was quite magnificent.
And it was funny because when I'm doing the graphic each week for the Patreon page for the leaderboard, I've seen Drew just sitting stagnant at his 25 votes. I'm thinking, so he'd be on 28, if I'm remembering correctly, after this week, which is pretty good for what is a deep midfield group that we're trying to fit votes between. But I've been seeing him sitting on the same amount of votes for a while because we haven't fit him in, and obviously the games haven't. He's been, but it was back to that. It was back to that kind of Willem Drew game we really fucking love. So
and before we move on from Drew, also Creed 1870 store, go get a WD28 shirt. I definitely want one. But when he's on, because the way that he approaches an opposition player, when I used to do my solo podcast, I used to call it the wingspan tackle, because if you watch Willem Drew coming into ball carrier, he has his arms spread like a bird, like like an albatross. Because he's giving himself every defensive option. He's covering for disposal, but he's also allowing himself to absolutely wrap up his opponent when he goes into the tackle. And I think that's maybe just a small indicator of when he's on in particular. Those arms he'll be running towards an opposition player. It's a bit like basketball, just make yourself look bigger.
Or even like a goalkeeper in soccer is like it's stay up and make yourself big and
I love it. It's a signature of his game.
It's like human instinct defending is just like make yourself big. So and he's I just love him. So glad you got him in the votes and glad you gave a little plug to that design on the store as well. I'll get you sorted with one at some point. Alrighty, round 17. This is a big one coming up too because the doggies are in decent form, I would say, and it's seemingly in this weird, convoluted competition that we find ourselves in. With, as I said, I think I brought it up at some point at the start. Now it's the start of the podcast so long ago, but we're at a point where we're just from 3rd to 13th is a 6-point gap. So every win almost feels like an 8-pointer at the moment, and every loss feels like an 8-pointer the other way. So, Western Bulldogs have won 5 of the last 7 in decent form. They smacked Fremantle a couple of weeks ago, which Freo have been having some decent wins
out of the box.
Yeah. But the Dogs can also still be a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, the Luke Beveridge kind of coaching question that's been around for a couple of years now is, and just where the Western Bulldogs are going. But they are kind of dangerous. And obviously, Marcus Bontempelli's an incredible force and one of the Brownlow favourites this year. So, Adelaide Oval this Saturday afternoon, obviously Adelaide time, 1 p.m. So country footy fans are unfortunately kind of out of the loop in that one. But, we're looking at a 16-degree day, 40% chance of maybe 1 mil of rain. So shouldn't be too much of a problem as far as real adverse weather, but could be maybe just a little bit slick if a shower or two pops through. So just a typical kind of early July day, really. Nothing too out of toward, but certainly makes it, I guess you could say, well, I mean, the last time we played the Bulldogs at Adelaide Oval was that gather round game last year, the first gather round. An incredible game under incredible duress from the weather in that one. Obviously, the famous scenes of Ken Hinckley in kind of a similar fashion to this last game that we just reviewed, with his emotion after that one. He had some fairly emotional response to the Jason Horne-Francis booing that was happening a lot more last year. Still smatterings of it this year, but I think people are starting to realize, Jason Horne-Francis pretty fucking
work.
good. Yeah. I was born in the booze. I was defined by it.
Molded by it.
Jason Horne-Francis, he's Bane now. All right. So looking at the dogs first before we just get to the and touch on, you brought up, we took a quick break in between our spotlight and some of the awards before, and you did bring up, as we were talking about earlier, we're talking about us first, just an injury update. Todd Marshall is apparently available according to our most recent injury update that dropped during our recording. So that's a selection thing on our end to consider. But on the Western Bulldogs end, Taylor Giroux, so they're missing Alex Keith and Ryan Gardner out of the defense, who are kind of a couple of decent players, and their defense are important. And Taylor Giroux, who's another one down there, twisted his foot. I hear, I didn't actually see it, but I just was reading.
I noticed he got subbed off. Yeah,
he did. Yeah,
tactical, but
no, he actually, he's a test for this week, so that's a decent pillar in their defense as well. So they are, while quite obviously doing quite well in the middle of the ground and up forward as well. Jamara Ugle-Hagen's coming on all right, and they've got Aaron Norton back, Cody Waitman's come back. So they're actually at a reasonable fitness level overall, but their defensive side has got a few guys potentially missing. An interesting cog in that is that Rory Lobb went back last week, and he's obviously been a topic of much discussion as far as his future goes, but he actually played a decent game down back. I haven't watched the game. I've just kind of read the reports out of the game, and I know Beveridge was pretty happy with how Rory Lobb played, and he actually played a role down back last week, and they win a decently close win. It was over North Melbourne. So, and then obviously we hope to have Willie Rioli back this week. He was out with illness, so we assume he's recovered from the calf injury. He was meant to be back, but
he's listed as available. So touch wood, he doesn't get sick again.
Yeah. We'll start with just looking at the defensive side of it quickly, just on our end. I've always found the Western Bulldogs a scary team for me. I don't know if it's because of in that period where they obviously were good. They won the premiership in 2016 and then developed out of that as just a tough team to play. They had a couple, and Cody Waitman always seems to have a fucking game against us.
True.
That fucking
he is
prick.
a good player, but
I say that fucking prick with the utmost respect. Kind of the Australian way of saying you fucking, it's kind of like, over in America, like if you say, "Oh, g'day, cunt," like someone in America is going to possibly
they'll report you to the police.
Yeah. Whereas in Australia, it's just like, "Oh, yeah, you're a good friend of mine."
What a nice man.
Yeah. So when I say, Cody Waitman does have his, there's been some controversies around his play acting, maybe, but geez, Beveridge and Robbo had a real stouse last night on AFL 360 about that too. Waitman does have some decent games. That was interesting to watch. Waitman does have some decent games against us. Aaron Norton's gotten off, and obviously the prelim, I guess, is probably what we really look back on.
I think that franks the
there was a game earlier, I think earlier in that season actually, where they played us at Adelaide Oval possibly, and they beat us. Was it away? I can't remember. There was a couple of games in that period where they guys like Waitman or Norton or got off the handle, and then obviously you throw Ugle-Hagen up there an hour, who's playing better, because he's as tall forwards do, they take a little while to develop, but and then obviously so Radaglia is going to be out again this week, I would assume, because you just assume that hamstrings are standard 2 to 3 weeker at least, if not more. So
I've got the injury report here if you wanted me to.
Oh yes, yeah, you should actually do that before. before I just vibe it out.
Yeah. So the club has posted it while we're recording. So Willie Rioli, yes, is listed as available. Lockie Jones is actually listed as a test. He had a bit of that niggle near the end of the game. Jace Burgoyne is listed as a test. I'd be surprised if he came up though, because he's just missed the one with a hamstring. I'm just going to list off AFL probably likely players. Asava is 1 week, officially 1 week.
Yeah.
Trent McKenzie 1 to 2 if you want to go there in terms of defense. Ryan Burton 2 to 3. Soldo 3 weeks, and obviously Sam Powell-Pepper the ACL.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not going to have Radicalea. That's obvious. So the defensive makeup will be largely like it was on Sunday against St Kilda. Because I don't know if you know, Lockie Jones was playing a bit of halfback, but he was also on the wing at various stages too, which I don't mind because
he has good running power. And
and he has defensive accountability. It's just his fumbly nature that I think kind of shadows a lot of the good work that he does. So yeah, I don't mind that. And when he went back to the Magpies, I've tuned in a couple of times and he has been around the ball a little bit more, again, mostly due to necessity. But yeah, interesting. See how he comes up. But I think it's one person you didn't mention as well for the Bulldogs is Sam Darcy. So they're top heavy and we're, missing that third tool. So how much that plays in effect, or has an effect, should I say? I'm not too sure. I mean, you just mentioned that they played a close one against North Melbourne. A lot of that was built off effort and so if we can keep it away from that end, it means that we're diminishing the opportunities for someone like Norton, Darcy, Ugle-Hagan, and then Waitman at their feet. I mentioned earlier in our assessment of the St Kilda game that I think we've got some players who actually have a bit more defensive accountability in their game, which is timely in this regard because they're going to have their work cut out for them, probably mostly in the air. Now, if the rain does come in, that'll make things interesting too and, may promote a late change for them. Don't know. We've been a bit stubborn when we've been tall and wet games and kept it how it is. So it's very interesting. They are a fairly hot team, but they're one of those mid-pack teams as well. So I really want to see our defense back up what they did on Sunday. Back up, but also go to another level if possible.
Yeah. I think it would be it's a big test, obviously, for the defense, but it would be a big win if they could kind of, not let any of these guys get off a leash. Naturally, there's going to be a goal here or there for them, but if you just don't want to get, because Cody Waitman's had a 4 or 5 goal game against us, I feel like at some point in the past. Aaron Norton's had his games, and obviously we haven't seen too much of Darcy and Ugle-Hagan ourselves yet as forces, but there are extra cogs in that defense. But as you said, tall, if we can body and bring the effort, that could be where we win, because if they can't get too much good ball coming in and
don't give them that much room.
Yeah. And
that's how Zerk Thatcher won his battle against King was he did a lot of body work early, which put him in a better position to outmark or beat a guy who's, a little bit taller than he is. Put it succinctly.
Yeah. You can make up for, there's a lot of things you can make up for as far as, obviously natural height and things help, but there's a lot of footy smarts things that can go into defense as well, as far as how you can fix those battles. And obviously the major thing is just going to be that pressure up the ground, as well as we've said. That's where we often win or lose these kind of battles, as far as the inside 50s, as well as just the defensive battles as well. As far as just flipping the field and going up forward is probably where some of those questions out of the injury report come, because I just assumed that Marshall, with the whispers of hamstring, would be out at least for a week.
Yeah.
But then, we've got Willie Rioli available again. And as you posited the idea of just a straight swap for Rioli and going a bit smaller. And again, as we mentioned with the Dogs forward line, if there is a bit of rain around, because obviously this forecast could change, being that we're recording this on a Tuesday, Australian time, Tuesday evening, and it could, things could change in the interim. What we do up forward, because Rioli has to come back in. He was obviously one of our best players for this season, coming in before he got injured, and a lot of our forward kind of stagnation seems to have come since, like, obviously some issues there anyway, but has come since he's been out of the side. So he has to come back in. Who do you take out for him? A lot of people a few weeks ago would have said Jed McEntee, but he went out last week anyway. So, obviously out of the extended squad, maybe a guy like Lorenz gets the chop. As unfair as that would be, because you'd like to see more of him, but it is, depth is that's just what happens when guys are coming back in. But I did have it as a thought to bring up before you even brought it up, was the idea of, do we have to kind of go away from being too tall down forward, because we've tried it all year a little bit and it hasn't worked great. And if a guy's out of form and a guy that was in form is back in, you just do a straight swap and just change the structure a little bit and see if you can get some love out of that. Particularly, as we have touched on already, the Western Bulldogs backline is the one spot that's under a little bit of pressure from just the injury toll.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rory Lobb's going back there provides them some height and some good marking ability, but they are still missing some of their more.
He'd still prefer to be unaccountable.
Yes, yeah.
So if we can make him accountable, he'd probably be a bit of a fish out of water.
Yeah.
He played an okay game on the weekend, albeit against North Melbourne, and in a position he doesn't have much experience in. So I dare say they'll still go with it because they kind of have to.
Yes, it is absolutely a necessity.
Yeah, if we can get our scariest forwards, around their kind of weakest line coming into this week, then we absolutely have to take advantage of that and put it in the middle, put it between the big sticks.
Yeah, which I guess again raises the question about even if Marshall is, by medical reports fit, if he is still battling some niggles and some confidence issues, that does raise that question. Again, we both love Todd Marshall, but it's just like, it just feels like he does need, as you said, whether it's a spell completely and some rest for his body and just some do some yoga and some Pilates. I don't know, really just get away from it for a bit and just reset. Or if it's just a spell in the SANFL to find some form again and work through those issues that way. Because I still think he's got a high upside. It's just it's not working at the moment, and it feels like there's a little bit of an opportunity there just to change the structure a little bit and try something different, because it's not like there's much of a net positive coming out of Marshall on the side. He is getting the opportunities. He's getting opportunities to kick a couple of goals a game, but he's not kicking them, and that's the problem. And you'd like him to be getting a few more opportunities as well. So between all those things, but otherwise, kind of see that as a little plus point for the game, because this is a game that scares the shit out of me, particularly with, obviously, the win on the weekend was nice, but with the overall context of the last the entire month of June, really, in the back of my brain, this game, particularly as we get to the middle, is probably where it really scared. Because Bontempelli's just on a tear, and then obviously they've got some, Jack McRae's a player I've loved over the years, and Trelaw is a pretty handy little, just doesn't seem.
He's an accumulator. Trelaw doesn't scare me as much as what a Bontempelli or even a Liberatore
He doesn't scare me, but because he's
still a key cog.
He's a complement to, if Adam Trelaw was your lead guy, yes, I'm obviously seeing that as a lot more, but because he's kind of a complement to the likes of Bontempelli and McRae, and then Liberatore can possibly do that kind of do a little bit of that role on some of our guys as well, and obviously with how our midfield's had been beaten by some midfields that of probably a similar caliber and makeup with the variation in skill levels, or skill sets. That's probably what scares me more. It's not like if you'd asked me after the Essendon game, then I'm going, fuck yeah, bring him on. But like that's
Yeah, fuck
since then we've just, and it's not like at our best. I think we, win this fairly well, but it's just like while we saw a bit more of a structure in the midfield, the attendances and stuff and centre bounce attendances and stuff on the weekend, I still don't know if we know exactly. We're trying to work towards it, and that's just part of the development of a young midfield. We're trying to work towards finding our best mix, but we're still figuring that out. So that's that's the unknown going into this one, is figuring it out as we're going, and how that comes into this game. Yeah, I'm rambling now. But your thoughts on that?
in regards to the midfield.
Yeah. I'm thinking of them going. It's just like it is such a
It scares the shit out of me too.
Yeah.
But I think it is franked by the preliminary final, because I think we won the game prior.
I have
to
a lot
that
of PTSD.
them. Yeah. We went to Marvel in 2021. I think it was the last game of the season. We had
to win that one to get top 4. Yeah.
Yeah. That secured top 2 even, and then we obviously lost the
top 2,
preliminary final, and we've actually won our last 3 games against them. I guess the biggest thing is that I don't think Adelaide Oval doesn't feel like a fortress at the moment, and I think that kind of plays into it. Like, I think out of our 6 losses, we've lost 3 at home, and that also, it's like got a rousing, hard fought away victory, but we're not. Yeah, our home ground isn't as indestructible as it once was, perhaps. But like I said, I watched the KO mini of the game against North Melbourne, and for all the plaudits that say Bontempelli gets for the game that he had, like North Melbourne have a bit more kind of discipline and not give away stupid free kicks, and it's a much closer game, and it was all built on effort, because you break through that Bulldogs midfield, and you're coming up against a pretty undermanned defense, and shout out to Bryn Teakle. He got a goal against them, ex-Port Adelaide player, which was nice to see. But I guess that's kind of puts it into perspective a little bit, that we don't have to change the wheel necessarily to beat them overall. We just need to back up what we did on Sunday and just bring the heat. Because for gather round last year, I wouldn't say our midfield is too different, ours or theirs, to be honest. Like, you still had JHF around there, you still had Butters playing, Rosie playing. Wines was on the periphery because of his lack of preseason last year. Mead was nowhere to be seen. He was stuck in the SANFL, and Willem Drew was featuring. Maybe Boak was going through the center more often. But I think we definitely have to do a job. Like, I think the games that we've done well against Bulldogs, it's because Willem Drew has been accountable for someone. And again, if that allows Butters and HORNE-FRANCIS or Rosie, whoever's in the mix with him, to do well, then we absolutely have to do that. I could obviously say that every week for whoever's best midfielder, but I think we've found some good returns against the Western Bulldogs. Like in that 2021 year when we played them at Marvel, he did a great job on Liberatore, and then we didn't do a job on any of them in the preliminary final, and it fucking bit us in the ass, clearly.
Yeah.
So definitely looking for a bit of that, because you even mentioned Jack McRae. He's been down on historical form. And Liberatore is still a danger for me. He's a contested beast, but Bontempelli's just awesome. So I need to quell his influence, particularly because he can he's like a one-man kind of momentum shifter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when in a game, the modern game of Aussie rules football, it's a lot based on momentum, and when you've got it and when you don't have it, trying to get it back, he shifts that momentum for them on a regular occurrence.
Yeah, you want to whether you can actually execute it or not, but you kind of want to go into the game and think, if we can kind of keep him to 30 disposals or less and 1 to 2 goals, and you've probably done an okay
That's
job.
probably par. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like if you keep him to less than that, then you're probably quelling his. Yeah. And then if you can do a job, that's even better. Like because he has, I think he's had a couple of games this year that have been. Or I might be thinking of someone else. Or actually, might be thinking
When
of
he was having back spasms last week, and he ended up playing and was best on ground.
He had
so
35 touches and kicked a couple. I think.
Whether that rears its ugly head again, and
yeah, because it is an interesting thing.
We don't want to rely on injuries. We want to win this game. Let's off the back of the St Kilda game. We don't want to. Obviously, we want to keep banking wins, but I want to see just a continuation of that flip in form, because if it goes the other way and we can play a game at home, fans will sing Never Tear Us Apart before, and then our midfield in particular puts in a fairly insipid effort. We know what's going to happen, and it could get ugly.
No,
I'm hopeful that Sunday just gone is that kind of circuit breaker, which gets us rolling back in the direction that we want to. It probably won't be, if we win, it won't be an easy win.
Mm-hmm.
But the last few games we played against them, it's been between, I think, 2 and 3.5 goals, something like that. That's probably the region that it's going to sit at.
Yeah, I think Gather Round last year was 14 or 15 points, and it was the last quarter that's had I think a Xavier Dersma goal and another goal or two that got us over the line.
Yeah. Zach Butters at the end, he did kick the goal, which was a great goal, and gave the old his face celebrating that goal.
He's such an expressive face. Like I often go often when I'm searching through like images for graphics and whatever, like if I have to Google Zach Butters, it just comes up with
Zach.
so many great like just random expressions he has. Like
one thing on another aspect of the midfield is obviously the ruck, and
I was just looking at Tim English's name. I saw number 44 on my sheet. I was like, yes.
Let's talk about the ruck. Because obviously Jordan Sweet's coming up against his old club, so there'll be a little extra kind of spice. He'll want to put in a good showing and kind of show them that he can match it with English, if not better him. Really looking forward to that, because obviously English is that more mobile type of ruckman, and I guess that's what Sweet would probably want to blossom into.
Yeah,
the guy that can do it in the air but also on the ground, which he showed against St Kilda. So I'm really looking forward. That's the only, in terms of matchups, that's the only one that I had written down in regards to the preview, because I'm really interested to see how it will unfold.
Yeah, I exactly for the reasons you brought up. Obviously because Sweet's now just got a couple of weeks 3 more weeks at least, that he's probably the number one guy unless anything drastically changes. He seems to have taken that mantle of the first one up if Soldo's injured, and even if he keeps going at the way he's going, he provides a question when Soldo's fit again. And certainly, the extra spice of coming up against his old club, which I don't, there's no animosity there. It's Tim English is clearly a class ruckman, and it's not like it was a acrimonious exit from the Dogs, but it is coming up against your old club, and you want to kind of that is that little mental it's you put a chip on your shoulder just to give yourself that little extra burst going into the game, but certainly. Just
and I took that personally.
Yeah. But for Sweet, just in his own development at Port Adelaide and being relatively young as far as games played in the AFL, even without the Western Bulldogs aspect of it, it's just a great test for him. Like, even if it wasn't his former club, it's. Yeah, that's probably the one I looked at a lot going into this one too, because English is one of the premier ruckmen in the competition, and we are coming up with what we thought at the start of the season was our second guy up. So that's still probably to be determined going forward. But yeah.
Just as well as that is, I just had a look because I didn't actually look at it before we came on to record. But so Sweet was obviously our number one against St Kilda. He had 28 hit outs, 10 to advantage. Rowan Marshall and Tom Campbell combined had 18 hit outs and a combined 6 to advantage. So, it was a good bounce back for Sweet after coming up against a pretty established and bulky ruckman in McInerney for Brisbane. Again, much like the team, I hope he continues to back. I hope he backs it up. For the better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real intriguing battle we've got coming up, and I think beyond everything we talk about the matchups, the one thing that we're always looking at every week is the effort, and particularly with some of the losses and the ups and downs of our season. That's really the key to our fortunes, is just that effort and kind of matching up what they say they are looking for. And obviously that we're still seem to be a club pretty united as far as within the club walls, with the coach and the players. So we just want to see that translated to the field. And St Kilda game, St Kilda game, while imperfect, we got the win and showed some sparks of life for that kind of mantra. So we just want to see that continue this week in what is a massive test against a Bulldogs side that, in a competition that is as even and unpredictable as we've seen in a long time, the Bulldogs are one of the teams that is in a reasonably consistent vein of form over the last 6 to 7 weeks. So a massive test awaits us. That about wraps it up on what has been a pretty extensive episode with lots of stuff to talk about as per usual, which is pretty incredible out of a game that apparently no one ever wants to watch again. So, as well as a really intriguing battle that's coming up. One more reminder that the Patreon, that first episode will drop on Friday. You will hear the first 40 minutes of it will be available on Spotify. It's roughly 40 minutes. Trying to find the break in time there, but there will be a bit of it on Spotify to give you a little taste. And the rest of the 3-hour epic that it is. I'm going to see Akira Kurosawa's like Seven Samurai at the Egyptian on Sunday, which it's like the 4K rest.
Any listeners haven't picked up already, Dave really likes movies, and living in Greater LA is a very on brand. You've got it all there, which I'm increasingly jealous of. The more we put.
It is great. It's I was going to say that on the website for the American Cinematheque, it says it's 207 minutes, which is about the length of what the podcast is going to end up at. Once I finish the edit. So Seven Samurai, The Creed, 2004, same, just cool. I'm basically what I'm trying to say is I'm not even going to try and say that. I'm not. Kurosawa was a legend, but anyway, our podcast will be roughly the same length as Seven Samurai. Keep an eye out for that, and it will be time stamped and all that stuff. So it will be very digestible in pieces if you want to do it that way. It'll be there'll be breaks in it for you, and that'll all be in the show notes and YouTube aggregation as well. So looking forward to getting that out there once I finish this very long edit that has been arduous but very enjoyable because it's all good stuff. But thanks for listening as always. Big game coming up, and as we continue to see the season wind down with how the AFL is playing out, every win just seems so much more important. Which seems like a cliche because it just feels like what you say every year, but there needs to be said that how tight the competition this year is really kind of unprecedented. Big game this week, and they're going to be big games all the rest of the way. So, cheers for your time as always, Jamie, and Khan the fucking pair.
No worries. Go Power. Come on, boys.